Howdy, everybody. About to get into this world, or talk about this world, rather. Maybe that's what I wanted to say. Have some conversations about what we got going on right now, coming out of Kenosha, Wisconsin, actually. Which normally, when you say that,
Conversations about what we got going on right now.
doesn't really mean anything in this world. When you normally say that you're coming out of Kenosha, Wisconsin. Uh, but that changed less than 24 hours ago. It's not. It's no longer. What is that? Unfortunately, it's not for good reasons. But here we are. So I'm just getting set up here. Okay. So, all right. So, Kenosha, Wisconsin. Why don't we talk about it? So, you'll notice that I titled this one, We Didn't Start the Fire. Um, Trying to do a little tongue in cheek play on the old Billy Joel there. Me trying to be cute. I mean, I before 24 hours ago, I would have said, like, no matter how angry black people get, um, Billy Joel would be cool. But I actually just saw how the Chris Cornell statue was desecrated. I'm gonna use the word desecrated. I think out in Washington State, and that ain't right. Chris Cornell ain't done nothing to nobody other than rock the house. Um, he even wrote his own stuff. He didn't steal it from us. So I figure if Chris Cornell can get it, I guess Billy Joel could too. So ain't nobody safe right now. But I've been saying a lot of the same things. So let's see if I can say them right now that we're recording live on the air. Anybody that wants to kind of jump in and talk, send me private. I'll put the link out here. Anybody wants to jump in, let me go ahead and do that now for Facebook. Go ahead and drop that in there. If you want to come on and share his thoughts, go ahead. But yeah, so let's start off with yesterday. I actually got a message from a person who just out of the blue said, "Hey, did you hear about the black guy that got shot?" So that was the first. Actually, let me back up even 24 hours before that. So let me start with my Saturday. So my Saturday, I had been invited to speak at a a Black Lives Matter event. So let's talk about this because I actually had to drive an hour to get there. Okay. And so beforehand, the individuals running this, they pulled their permits. So I'm not going to say the fact that you have permits makes you legit. I'm just going to say they had their permits, they had their stuff. So this wasn't just some young kids, just angry at the world because they took a couple classes their first year at a local college or whatever. All right. So I had been asked to speak. Now, my gut reaction was that I'm not going to say I didn't want to speak, but my gut reaction was, there's got to be some individuals from that area who have a closer tie to this area. Again, I was driving in, like, they have to have a closer tie. So there's got to be people better than me to speak at this event. I'm not afraid to talk. I know I talk too much, if anything. It was just a matter of you have to have people closer to the fight, maybe, who should be engaging on your behalf. So that was my attitude. Okay, just to get started. But engaging with them, they're like, we have people here, and we are collectively deciding that we would like you to speak. So, it's kind of funny here. While I'm talking, I'm going to show you my email with all this stuff going on. Check this out. Um, so this was my email this morning. Um, the Trump Pence campaign telling me that the movement needs Raymond. Well, if that's true, Biden's going to have an easier time even without me voting for him. So that's pretty interesting. But yeah, so I gave this speech. I drove up. I was supposed to speak for 10 minutes because I am who I am. I end up speaking for 16 minutes, which I apologize to them for after the fact. Met some very amazing people, which we'll get into next. But um, once I finished the speech, so before I agreed to do the speech, I told them, like, listen, we all have our life paths, we all have our ways. Um, while I am avid about fighting the good fight through economics, through organizing, through strategic management and business, I made it very clear to them that I'm not a marcher. M- Marching outside of another man's castle never made sense to me. I don't judge those who do, but for me personally, it's not my path. This is no different than the fact that even though I understand why some people kneel for the flag, I absolutely understand it, and I have zero issues with it. That's not my walk. You can say I was indoctrinated through my military time. You can call me whatever you want to call me. I'm not going to fight you on it because you're probably right. I I I will be one of the first to admit that I served and fought for a country that I could not rely on to serve and fight for me. I admit that. Um, it doesn't change the fact that at least today, who I am is who I am. So, um, for that reason, um, it's unlikely. It's unlikely that you will catch me kneeling during the anthem, but equally unlikely that you will catch me having any issues with someone else kneeling. I'm just explaining myself. I figure if you're gonna come at me, you might as well come at me for things that come out of my own mouth. So coming back to marching, it's just today. So I shouldn't say no. I should say not right now. Um, I am I am more likely to be walking down the street with a rifle before I'm walking down the street with a picket sign. That's just me. So I spoke to them about this. I was like, "Are you sure you want a speaker that's going to be your keynote speaker? Who, when everyone gets up to start marching, he's not going to go with them." And they agreed to it. I'm not going to say they were okay with it. They agreed to this. I felt it was respectful to them to give them this. So gave my 60-minute speech. They started moving on, but they had, I'm not going to say an after party, but they had a place where they're going to march and meet. It wasn't that far down away, maybe 2 miles at the most. And so I said, okay, I'll meet you guys down there and we'll continue these conversations. Well, they already had a plan to continue, but they were inviting me to this event, this secondary event. So I had some time to kill, quote unquote. So Waukesha downtown is actually very beautiful. So I just started walking, and my goal was to. I have a buddy who has a wine bar out there. I was like, I'm gonna go check it on my friend. I haven't seen him in a while. I don't get out there very much, especially with COVID. No one gets out anywhere, to be honest with you. So I am walking, and I see this group of people, and they've got signs like folded up and carved it, tucked in under their arms and everything like that. And I said, so I see them, and they're going the direction towards the park, and I say, so I call them. I go like, hey, um, you guys are late. And they're like, what? I was like, you guys are late. The group just left already, but they're meeting in Frame Park. And so one of the individuals, he yells back, he's like, did you hear about the kid who was shot by the black guy driving in front of your house? Um, or driving in front, riding his bicycle. Did you hear about the kid? And I said, and kind of caught off guard because they're walking towards me, but they're coming across the street. Um, so they come closer. So that group comes, and I again repeat myself. I don't know why. I just wasn't thinking. I don't know. I say, hey, I was saying that you guys are a little late. I mean, it's great to see you, but you're late. Um, and so then a man and a woman in the front, they start yelling at the same time. We're about 5 to 7 feet distance from each other. And they both go, "Did you hear about Cannon Hinnant? How he was just a little white boy riding his bike, and a black man killed him just for being white." And I kind of said, actually, I actually did hear about that. And then the lady, she goes, "Well, no one's talking about it." And I said, "Well, I can't speak for your world, but in my world, a lot of people are talking about it. Every news station, everyone." She's like, so then he goes, "Yeah, well, white lives matter." Now, before I continue telling this story, I need to say this. I have training. I was trained by the US government to talk to terrorists. Well, that's really the simplest way I can put it. I have formal training speaking to terrorists. So let's jump back into the story. This was Saturday. So they said, white lives matter. And my response was, absolutely. So then his I would find out later, but it was obvious. His lady friend, she says it. She goes, "Yeah, white lives matter." I said, "Absolutely. Of course they do." So then he said, "All lives matter." I said, "Yes, yes. White falls under all." So I'm okay with that statement as well. So then a third time, together at the same time, they said, "White lives matter." So I said, "Yes, but that's not a third time you've yelled that at me, and you both are taking a very belligerent and defensive posture. I'm agreeing with you, but you're still yelling at me. I feel like you're wanting something more than me to agree with you. It seems like you want a fight. All you have to do is ask." And the guy, he was like, "No, no, that's not what I want." I go, "Help me understand." I go, "I am not the smartest man in the world, but I've agreed with you 3 times. You're still yelling at me, and we're 5, 6 feet from each other. Where I come from, it might be and I did say that. I go, it might be the ignorant Negro side of town. Maybe that's what it is, us ignorant Negroes." I go, "But where I come from, these are all telltale indication signs of you want to fight." I said, "Well, luckily for you, despite what's in my best interest, I'm a former Army Ranger guy, and I am here to serve. So you don't even have to let me know. Let's just begin." Now, before you start thinking I'm all badass and everything, um, the guy, he looks 45, Coke bottle glasses, 5'4". He's got an A shirt on, and he's got this sign. And his girlfriend, skinny, probably 4 or 5 inches taller than him. Not that it matters. I'm just saying. Um, but they're the leaders of this camp. And he says, "Well, we just want this kid to get justice." And so we go into this conversation. Now, this was an almost 2-hour conversation, but I'm not going to do that to you because we're going to get to Kenosha. But let's go through this kind of fast and furious. So he says, "We just want justice." And I said, "White Lives Matter organization." So some of them said no, some of them said yes. I said, "Well, you guys don't seem on the same page. Are some of you White Lives Matter and some of you All Lives Matter?" Some said no, some said yes. Um, And I said, well, it doesn't matter. Let's just continue forward. We can go with identification later. I said, so you want justice for Mr. Young Cannon Hennon. I said, that doesn't sound offensive to me. I go, so why were you looking for Black Lives Matter? And they said, well, because we need them to understand that it's not just about them. They didn't seem interested in hearing our message, though. So I then responded that actually, you know what? You're in luck. I was actually the keynote speaker today, and I am Black Lives Matter. So why don't you explain it to me? And that's how our conversation kicked off, out in the middle of the street. Poor Waukesha PD. They must have burned half a tank of gas on all those SUVs, just circling the block, because it's just me. I normally dress like a comic book villain. I had my hat on and everything. And just this circle of very confused people. And unfortunately, their children. We'll get into that. But so we kicked into it. So that's where we started. It's like, okay, hey, I'm Black Lives Matter. Name's Ray Roberts. What do you want me to understand? So they jumped in and they said, well, this little boy was killed. It's like, you've already said that several times. What do you want me to know that I don't know? And so they go, well, we don't see you marching for justice for him. And I agreed with them, like, no, you don't. But let's talk about it. I go, to my understanding, the individual who did it was apprehended very quickly. I go, do we agree with that? I'm not going to force that down your throat. They agreed. I said, so I believe North Carolina, not that I personally support it, but I'm pretty sure North Carolina has the death penalty. And they said, yeah, it does. He's going to die. Like, one guy said, yeah, he's going to fry. Like, okay, well, you seem very happy about that. So what should be happening that you don't think is happening, that you feel Black Lives Matter should be marching for? And that was the beginning of what the next hour and a half looked like, just puzzlement and wonder. Batman, what is it? Batman Begins with Joker. There's this scene where he's in the police station and Batman's like, why? While he's beating up the Joker. And the Joker goes, why are you asking why? I'm a dog chasing a car. I have no clue what I would do if I actually caught it. And that's what this demonstration was. I think they had ramped themselves up. Well, I know. They had built themselves up to such a point of, we're going to go engage some Black people and we're going to tell them about this little boy, and they're going to just, I don't know, combust or flip out or something. And because of that, we're just going to show them. And that was the end of their plan, from what I can see from that conversation. That was the approximation of their strategy. So when I didn't do that, half of them got very confused. Well, more than half. So we continued the conversation. And one of the guys, he's like, well, we don't know he's going to get the death penalty. I go, so is that what you'd like me to march with you with? Would you like me to protest with you until we're guaranteed that he's executed? And hey, sir, Steve's on with me, so I'm kind of telling a story about Saturday, so jump in whenever you're ready. But so I said, is that what you need from Black Lives Matter? And so a couple was like, yeah, that would be great. So I said, okay, just to clarify, before Black Lives Matter makes sense, Black Lives Matter has to guarantee that every criminal caught gets executed. Then you will treat Blacks as equal human beings. So they had a little dissension there. Some said yes, others said no. We think all lives matter. So we then dug into all lives matter. And when we dug into all lives matter, this is where the conversation went. I said, I don't know any of you. I've just met you today. So whatever you say, I'm going to take you at your word. Now, it was mostly men. So I said, I'm going to take you as your word as men because only cowards would lie. This is America. Say what you want to say. So I said, here's the thing. I don't think any of you have ever, ever, when a child that was not white was killed, none of you have ever woke up that morning and said, we need to march because all lives matter. And that's where the conversation got very interesting because I started going down the line. I said, how many of you think you're racist? And of course, they all said, no, we're not racist. We just believe that all lives matter. I said, okay. I said, next question. How many of you have gone to your local motorcycle gang that you know is racist and said, hey, all lives matter? Oh, actually, let me do it in the right order. I first said, how many of you have gone to the police department and said, hey, police, all lives matter. We want you to treat every suspect the same. I'm like, no, I've never done that. I said, I appreciate your candor. Thank you for being men. I continued. I said, how many of you have gone to your local KKK group or white supremacist group and they said, well, we don't know any racist. It's like, okay, how many of you have gone to your local motorcycle club that you know is whites only? And all of a sudden, like, oh, yeah, those guys. So nobody knows racist groups, but everyone knows a white motorcycle club that doesn't like people who aren't white. So that was very entertaining for me personally. So I asked them, how many of you have walked into that motorcycle club's house or wherever they're drinking and said, hey, motorcycle club, all lives matter. I need you to start treating everyone with respect. And one of the guys just couldn't help himself. He jumps up and he goes, of course not. Why would I do that? I'm not trying to get shot. So I said, so you admit that you came out today because you thought it was going to be a whole bunch of young kids and women, but you don't say all lives matter to white racists because they might actually kill you. So that was the first guy or the first group of the partition that I engaged. And we continued further. I said, I don't know your hearts. I would bet money, but I don't know for certainty. But if someone asked me to bet $1,000 on each of you that you actually don't care about all lives, and the only time you actually speak, the only proof in your life is when it's white lives, I believe I would make more money than I would lose. I go, now here's the thing. You all know the truth. You know, we don't have to say it here, but you guys know if I would make more money or go broke. You know your lives and you know your life paths. And it got interesting because they were talking more. It became more open, but they were trying to find a way to make it sound reasonable. And so they went from yelling. Now we're actually just talking. I mean, we still got a little distance, a little COVID, whatever. But now the conversation is about, well, help me hear your message. And basically, I just kept letting them talk to me. And I kept saying, I got to be honest. That's very confusing. And that's what I kept saying over and over. I have to be honest. That doesn't make sense. Given what I've seen, given what I've been presented here today, it got to a point where the one guy, the one leader, his girlfriend got so angry. She yells out at me. He's like, I'm tired of hearing about how hard you blacks have it. I've been to jail. And I just looked at her and I said, did you do it? And she just stormed off. So the guy, clearly his woman, he's one of the leaders. I go, so he keeps talking to me. He stays. I was very impressed with that. He stayed. And I kept coming back to his girlfriend. I go, a lot of people aren't here for truth. I go, that's why your girlfriend ran off. I go, she woke up just to be angry today. He's like, yeah. I go, now, if you're honest, you did too. And the tail end of our conversation was really asking that question where I was like, what does that mean? Because he we shared our age. He was 40, I'm 38. And I said, what does that mean, man? You woke up this morning You heard there was a Black Lives Matter event. You're a 40-year-old man. You woke up. I go, you made that sign. I mean, just think about it. You're a grown man with a piece of cardboard. It's got black and pink writing, and it's got this boy's name on it. And I was like, you don't care about that Hinnant kid. I'm like, I go, and what amazed me, you brought your woman and your kid. And you could see, I'm not going to say shame. I could see conviction in his face. Because once he heard someone else say it out loud and basically be like, what are you doing? He couldn't explain himself. And there was this boy. The boy's like 9 or 10, is on his bike. He's seen his dad talk to this guy. But he was sitting there while his daddy was making that sign. So he's probably like, what is going on? You know? Because then he starts, so a lot of this group, they do very similar patterns. So once we started talking and he couldn't articulate, it becomes then about how the government is playing us against each other. It's where this type of white racist always goes. Well, it's not us. It's the government playing us against each other. And I just kept continuing forward. It's like, no, I don't see that, man. It's kind of like a guy who says that he hit the woman because she made him. She made him angry. You control your own actions. I don't see no George Soros or Koch brothers. They're not making me and you say the words we're saying to each other. We are grown men. We are responsible for our actions and our life here in this moment. And so we kind of dug it as like this. There's no big government conspiracy here. I decided to come here and speak for Black Lives Matter on my own. You decided to make that sign and walk down here to teach me and the other blacks something. So we didn't get into his job. He's like, I have black friends. I was like, again, man, call me a capital. Oh, I skipped a part. So at one point I get called a communist. And for those of you who don't know me, which would be kind of weird because you're listening right now, I dress like this every day. So he's like, because, it's a whole communist thing. I was like, do I look like a communist to you? And they were kind of like, yeah, I guess we shouldn't have said that. But it's just like watching them go through all the verbatim stuff they've been fed. So once they realized that I can't possibly be a communist because my clothes were worth more than all their clothes combined, we then went on to the next thing where it was like, well, one guy started telling me, he's like, I work 6 days a week, 14 hours a day out in the sun. There are people living in the boarding house that I live in who don't do any work. They just collect a check. They could do more with their lives, but they complain. And I said, amen, brother. That's what guys like me say about guys like you. I go, I am in the top 1% of income earners. I dress nice every day. I go, but I hear guys like you complain about working 6 days a week and working 14 hours in the sun. And I say to myself, stop being lazy. Go to school. Become a data scientist. Get a couple degrees. Do what I did. If I can do it, anyone can do it. Guys like me say you're lazy and you're the reason why the country's not better off. And you're really watching the wheels turn because they're realizing that if you're going to base your value off of devaluing another human being, there's always another human being who can do the same thing to you. It only sounds good when you're at the top of the pile. So I'll skip to the end of the conversation because, one more little point in this crazy conversation out in the middle of the street, downtown Waukesha. Turns out we're having the entire conversation in front of a wellness, health, treatment, yoga center. So this lady comes out and she's like, hey, gentlemen, I just been hearing you talking. Her exact words, I've been hearing you talking out here. And I just wanted to share with you that we're a wellness treatment center and we do hot yoga baths and rubs and everything. Now, I'm like, is she trying to shut us up? Is she trying to shame us, Because I'm like, this conversation has to happen. And while I appreciate your business, if I don't sit here and talk to these wayward souls, the chances of them running into a black person in Waukesha, Kenosha to have this conversation with them is slim to none. But I'm glad that while I was thinking these thoughts in real time, I didn't speak. So eventually, when she started inviting us in, I went inside. They all left. So that's how it ended. We traded information. Oh, so I did that. I said, hey, you know what? Because they started saying, oh, we have black friends. And I said, tell me about your black friends. And it turns out that, like most people like this, their black friends are actually black people they happen to work with. So I said, those aren't friends. I said, they're not friends because you don't have a choice whether they're there or not. I go, now, if you own the company and you work with black people, you can say they're black friends. But if you don't own the company, they're not black friends. So I said, but you are all in luck. I go, any of you that are not cowards, give me your phone number and I will call you right now. And you now have a black friend in me. And you can call me all day, every day. I am now your black friend, to the point where if other black people mess with you, you can call me and say, I know Ray Roberts. So a couple of them actually took me up on this. Now, because of my days in college, I've seen the tricks before. So I called them in front of me to make sure that their phones rang. Because, back in college, girls are like, give me fake numbers and stuff. I'm like, nah, I'm not falling for that a 74th time. So you're all going to give me your number and I'm going to call you. I'm going to make sure your phone lights up. So I did the calls and the phones actually lit up. So then they left. I go inside to the yoga house. Turns out the yoga team, the yoga group, they couldn't actually hear what we were saying. They could only hear whoop, 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 whoop through the walls. So I didn't tell them what happened. And they're like, what? We saw them with signs because, by then they tucked their signs in. They tucked their signs under their arms or on their legs. They took them down. There's like, we saw them with signs. We thought you were all Black Lives Matter and you guys were just having a spirited conversation about Black Lives Matter. I'm like, no, that was White Lives Matter and All Lives Matter and a couple local KKK guys. And, unless those SS tattoos, just magically appeared out of nowhere. But that's who they were. So they're like, oh, had we known, we would have talked to them about healing and the path and everything. I'm like, well, I agree with you. Healing and paths are the way, but it's okay. We're good. So that was my Saturday. And I'll tell you this. I told that story like the people were just complete clowns and jokes. But I woke up the next morning and the first text in my phone was the leader of that group. And I know it's only been 2 days, but he has been the first text message in my phone when I wake up every day so far. And we've been having a conversation. Now, don't get me wrong. We're not about to become double Dutch champions, besties. But I mentioned this because within that same 48-hour span, I was talking to several older Black teachers with 15, 20 years experience, and they were more dedicated to ignorance than he was. I had one of these teachers tell me, I've been teaching for 21 years, and I don't need to hear anything you got to say. I don't need to see any research you have. Basically, she was talking about how the problem with the black side of town today is they don't vote. And so, it's easy to say that, but if you're wondering where you're going to sleep tomorrow because you're facing an eviction or you're working 60 hours a week just to make ends meet, you're not actually worrying about sitting in common council meetings for 6 hours a week or even 6 hours a month. You got more what will kill you first things going on. Like, well, no, there's no excuse. I got these parents all the time who never come to teacher parent conferences, parent teacher conferences. And I said, I agree with you, but how about the child? You got some children that don't do well in school because they don't want to do well in school. You have other kids that don't do well in school because there was yelling and fighting in their house all night and they haven't eaten except for lunch yesterday. The only meal they get is at school. She's like, well, still. And that's how we went down this line. So I say it to say that I had more connection and headway with the leader of the White Lives Matter group than I did within my own group from a teacher of 21 years. So that was my Saturday. Now we're into Kenosha. So before I jump into continued stories, I want to say hey to Mr. Steven.
Hello, Ray. Good to see
How
you.
we doing, sir?
Oh, I had a couple wonderful belly laughs listening to your story.
I try to keep it. I try to keep it engaging and entertaining. I swear I don't embellish that much. All the key points there occurred, and yeah, I always tell people you can't make it up. That's what I always say. Like the story is just too out there. There's no way I made that story up.
Well, and another thing I just want to say to anybody out there who's listening is that although Ray has been trained by the U.S. government to speak with terrorists, the ability to have a level-headed conversation of import with others is not something that is only within the purview of an Army Ranger.
No. And I will dare say, don't expect it from every Army Ranger. I will go that far. So you were absolutely correct. I'm only speaking on, I don't feel that this is mostly natural talent. And I say that because I fear that when certain people outside my demographic or my social circle, when they see how I am, they start saying things like, why can't they all be like that?
Sure.
So I don't want people using me as a tool against others. So that's really why I make a point to say that.
Mm-hmm.
Because even that group, they're like, man, you're really smart. You're really educated. You're really rational. And I did say that to them, by the way. One of the guys like, you're just really calm. And one of the guys like, look at us just having this conversation. I said, we're having this conversation because I was trained to talk to terrorists. You guys literally walked up to me looking for a fight. I used to go village to village in Afghanistan, speaking to people who had declared me their internal enemy. I am trained for you. And that's what I said to them. I am trained for you to have a conversation with you, but if necessary, shoot you in your face. Because that's what people will do. People will be so belligerent and so aggressive and so nasty. And when you end up talking to them, they will delude themselves into thinking that was a team effort. Now, don't get me wrong. They had to be a certain level of openness, but they'll be like, we did it. I'm like, okay, let's agree that we both made it to the touchdown, but you were the football. I carried you. I carried you these 80 yards. So that's really why I bring it up, because that happens actually more often than you might think, where I had to leverage all the training and any natural abilities or experiences I may have to get to the finish line. And they'll be like, we did it, right? I'm like, technically, yes, we did it. And so I don't want them doing that to others.
Yeah, and I do hope that people with skin tone closer to mine can also have the, I think it takes a level of courage. I used to sell Kirby vacuums, so I'm really good at talking to people that don't want to talk to me.
I'm going to say, have you sold Kirby vacuums more than one day? Did you last more than one day?
I never had a single return of any vacuum that I sold. I worked there for several months.
You used to work there for months. So if you lasted longer than a week, I think you might be the most courageous man I've ever met. I had buddies that, when they first started selling the steak knives and everything, and they tell them to go practice on their friends or whatever and maybe get a sale. And I remember one of my buddies, he gave me his pitch and he's like, what do you think? I'm like, you're going to get murdered. So the fact that you sold anything in this day and age, door to door, yeah, bro, that's conflict resolution right there.
Yeah,
because some people actually open the door, I imagine, be like, what do you want?
Well, and I think we had talked last time about the conscious conversation. I can't remember the term from the conscious business book, but about communication, authentic communication. I think what it was.
Yes, sir.
And that your story is a fantastic example of authentic communication. And they at least stuck around long enough to to get past that surface level stuff. So I think it's a really wonderful example, and I do hope that, like I said, that other people can find that courage to just kind of step into the arena. It's not as scary as you think.
Just so everyone following us here right now. Oh, Eric. Yeah, Cutco. Yeah, Cutco knives. So just follow what we're talking about here. We had some previous conversations, but what he's talking about is actually it could cover a couple things, honestly. If you look at the list here, the left side is basically things you probably don't want to do or you shouldn't do. And the right side is, let's call it the golden path. So what we were just talking about there is the difference between manipulative conversation or manipulative communication versus authentic communication. Now, you might be seeing this for the first time. You might be like, Ray, I just heard your story, and it sounded like you were extremely manipulative. I was in control of the situation. What manipulative communication talks about is you have information that if the other person had it, the conversation would go differently and in their favor, but you withhold information. You withhold material evidence. Imagine you selling your house to buyers and there's a mold problem, but you don't mention that. That is manipulative communication. When you only focus on the great things about the house, but you leave out the fact it has a systemic mold problem. While I was kind of patting those guys and gals around, I was never withholding information from them that was material to the conversation. I mean, if you trust me, I argue I wasn't. That's the difference between that is the definition of manipulative communication here versus authentic communication, where I talked about, I used the word transparency a lot when engaging them. I kept saying, we are but men. I kept saying, and they would say something like, well, we don't see Black Lives Matter marching when gangsters and thugs do something. I'm like, well, they don't pay gangsters and thugs. And I shared that. It's like, I'm a taxpayer. I don't pay gangs to go out and shoot people. I don't pay gangs through my taxes to deal drugs. I do pay my police to be policemen. I go, are you telling me that the policemen that I pay, I should not ask more of them than criminals I don't know? And they had no choice. They had to say, no, that makes no sense. And they tried to take us down to, we shouldn't be paying taxes anyway. I'm like, no, stay on point. Stay on point.
Yeah. Well, and you also had, I call it the posture of a learner. That you weren't saying to them, like, I know something and you don't know it, so I'm going to bestow this information on you. It was, this is the situation that we find ourselves in. Let's explore this together. And I think that's really, I think one of the reasons why that scenario turned out the way that it did.
Yeah, we dug into that, where I kept using the phrasing. I go, surely you agree I wouldn't be crazy if. So I said, you only have one name on your signs. I know a whole bunch of children that were killed. So I actually brought up how recently there was a Senegalese family out in Colorado. I don't know if you heard about this. A Senegalese family that, so some people, 3 men, I'll pull up 3 men in the middle of the night. They set fire to this house. This family is they are foreigners and they legally here. Not that it should matter. You shouldn't be killing people who are not legally here. But in the middle of the night, put on masks because they knew there was cameras. So they put on masks, even put on like illuminating masks where it reflected back light. So they set fire to the house and killed 3 adults and 2 small children. So I shared this with this group because I first asked, so you really care about the fact that children were killed? Because that's what one guy tried to say. there's a difference between a small child being killed. That's what he said. There's a difference between a small child being killed and adults who can make their own decisions. So I saw where they were going with this. Like, they're trying to shut down me mentioning any adults. So I'll have to pull it up later, but yeah, this was just very recently. Three adults died, all Senegalese, and two children. So I said, have you guys heard about that? And they said, no. I'm like, so you should be super angry because no one's talking about that. Just me and my small group of friends. And I continued on by saying, I'm going to be back here next week. And I go, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but here's what I don't think I'm going to see. I don't think I'm going to see you guys walking around town with that family's name on that same board alongside the boy. I go, I could be wrong, but I don't think you truly care about children because 2 children were set on fire. And a couple were like, no, we're going to be back here. I go, here's the thing. I go, maybe you're not racist. But if you wanted to convince Black Lives Matter of that, you guys would have walked up to Black Lives Matter saying all lives matter, but having Breonna Taylor's name on that sign. I go, you would have had a whole bunch of black and brown names and white names saying all lives matter. I went further. I said, you guys ever heard of Shaver? They never heard of Shaver. You know Shaver? That was the guy, the white boy in the hotel, but they made him get on the ground
yes.
and they shot him anyway. Yep. So I told him that story. I go, had you came to Black Lives Matter talking about Shaver's name, I would have been halfway convinced. If a group of white people come to me and say, Ray, you say Black Lives Matter is not just about black lives. What about Shaver? I would have been like, you know what, brother? Let's sit down and talk about that because I am still talking about that. So the fact that they didn't even know about that, I was like, again, I could be wrong. I'm wrong every day. But how you guys come off, this is how I feel. This will actually segue to the people of Kenosha. I said, whenever a child turns 4, at least the children that I've had when they turn 4, goes this moment where it's bedtime and you try to tell them to go to bed and they go to bed, but they're 4. So they try to sneak out of their room. You're like watching TV or whatever. The adults are still up and they go out really slowly. And this is what always happens with my 4-year-olds. They seem to think that if you don't yell at them the moment you see them, I think they tell themselves they're invisible.
I have a 4-year-old, so can confirm this.
Yeah. So when you don't immediately reprimand them, but you're looking their direction, you can like see the wheels in their head spinning and they're like, I'm invisible. And they keep going. So what I always do is I wait till they're right in the middle out in the open. And then I go, what are you doing? And then they run back to the bed. I told this story to those guys yesterday and I said, right now, you are 40-year-old 4-year-olds who think you're invisible. You think by writing that little white boy's name on that piece of cardboard, I can't see you. You think by saying all lives matter, I can't see you. I'm telling you, I can see you. Same way I don't get mad at my children. Free country. I'm not mad at you. But how crazy would I be to not be able to see what you are? And I asked it as a question. I'm like, I asked him, like, how stupid would I be? How stupid would I have to be if when you guys said you really care about everyone, but that's the only name on your sign, when all these people have died, how stupid would I have to be? So I say that because I actually give them credit for their courage. You know, my all lives matter, white lives matter friends. So let's come back to Facebook, online, your friends and your friends, you know, in my case, your fellow church members. What One of the amazing things about the last 72 hours for me is all the things that the White Lives Matter and KKK and All Lives Matter people said. I would say with a 95% overlap, because people don't really call me nigger on Facebook, but 95% overlap. That's what you see people saying on Facebook today who swear they're not racist. I mean, I mean, all the sayings, all the conversation when you're going through the threads. What's a good one? How come Black Lives Matter only marches when a cop shoots them? How come they don't march when thugs shoot them? That's what the racist guys said the other day. Just yesterday. That's what they said to me. They asked me, why aren't you why aren't you, carrying when thugs? And I did ask them that. I'm like, what are you wanting black people to do? Are you wanting us all to become billionaires and start running around the middle of the night of Gotham fighting crime? Would we then get treated equal to you in your eyes? Because basically what it sounds like you want all black people to become Batman. That's what it sounds like. Well, no, it's just we don't know why you're marching. And, we just talked about that. You don't understand why I'm marching against the people I pay versus the criminals. I pay them to deal with the criminals. So then, well, what about black on black crime? And I said, well, what about child porn? And they're like, well, I don't know anyone who does that stuff. I'm not a pedo. I'm like, but I'm not a gangster. So why are you asking me about gangland violence? I go, I'm assuming you're asking me about gangland violence because in your head, only black people are in gangs. We won't touch that. So fine. In my little world, only 4 foot tall white guys manufacture and disseminate and, view child porn. So why don't you talk to your circles and help me shut down this child porn ring? And you kind of get these wheels twisting. But when I look online to people who claim to be decent folks, they're saying the same thing. You know, I don't like what happened to the guy, but this is no reason for destroying property. People don't think about what they say. You just watch somebody almost get killed, or in many cases being killed, and you're saying, yeah, but, and you're talking about property. I'm watching, I'm watching like people online talking about these animals. I'm not even going to go with the heartstrings here. Let's just go with this logically. If you sit around calling a group of people animals, subhuman, garbage, saying they don't matter. I saw someone even write about Jacob saying that, even if he dies, it's not a loss to society. And I talked the lady through that. I go, imagine being one of his sons and seeing that you said him growing up without his father it's not a loss. There's no negative for the world. Imagine being that boy and growing up becoming a man. I said, objectively, could you understand if that little boy grew up to be an angry man and he dedicated his life to burning everything that you know and love? I'm not saying, would you appreciate it? Could you understand him burning or wanting to destroy everything you know and everything you love? There is a cost to every decision, including calling people subhuman or garbage or animals. If you tell people that they're animals, why on earth would you be surprised when they start attacking you like animals? If you tell people they have no place in society, why on earth would you be surprised that they have no interest in maintaining society? Set it on fire. There's no place for me. What use is there of a society for a person who's being told they have no place in it? And that's why I titled this what I titled it, where you might see a whole bunch of angry people who look like BLM or mixed in with BLM starting these fires right now. But where I'm standing, I saw community members trying to keep the peace. I saw older adults trying to talk to angry younger adults and trying to keep the peace. in like on the ground trying to keep the peace. Online, I saw two things. I saw the group that most of us agree with, the larger group, the more popular agitators. So that's the out of town rioters, who I did see that happen. I'm watching chatter from Ohio, Milwaukee, and they're saying, let's go to Kenosha. I did see that. It's absolutely real. I'm just looking at the card plates. They're smart. They take their license plates off their cars because they know there's so many of them. They take the license plate off the cars. That is true. What I also saw was local, usually older age whites. I would say over the age of 30, local whites who don't live in the area, inciting. So I will, if you happen to be listening, or you can share this to one of these people that's listening, I really would like you to get this message to them. If you are online saying those animals, I can't wait for the National Guard to get in and start shooting them, I need to tell you what happens. People who want the riots to start, like directly want them to start, but they need to get people riled up, they will screenshot what you said and share that with their community and say, look, this is them calling you an animal. This is them saying that you have no value. Burn it. You are the ignition. You are the ignition. So let's say all the people in the street are the fuel. So they did go out there. They're out there. That's the fuel. You had people, actually, I'm not going to say me. You had a lot of better people trying to throw water on this kindling. They were just keeping everything cool. They were spreading out the wood. So they were doing all this. But you people who were online, I even saw an elected official. He wrote, stay home or Kenosha's finest is going to take care of you. In what world does that not look like sparking a flint over over a fire, or just start a fire?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's insightful. And that's what we don't have enough adults acknowledging, and we don't have enough adults calling out other adults. I had many. Go ahead.
I was going to say, you had said something, or you had posted something on Facebook, I think last night, about not taking actions when you're emotional, or something to that effect. And in the age of liking and sharing and retweeting things, it's a click. It's such a minor muscle spasm that can, and then it's out of your mind. You did it and it's gone, and you don't ever reflect on what that potentially is. And in fact, we had a very quick Facebook conversation back and forth right before you started streaming about screenshots of a post that was very inflammatory and designed to create conflict. That, looking at, I'm a researcher. I was a chemistry student, so I love doing digging and finding the background on it, and come to find out that they're probably, more than likely, fake accounts that were created within the last 24 hours for the explicit purpose of creating division and stirring up trouble.
And I was setting this up, so I was like, you know what? You gave me enough benefit of the doubt where I was like, I'm just taking it down. And I think I wrote that, kept it up for like 30 seconds or so people who were following could see that. And then I tore them down because it's like, I need to check into this, because to your point, you can be a tool of disinformation if you don't keep your head on a swivel. Mm-hmm. So it's like you need to be actively aware of these items. And because I saw two of them and I was like, I just started following both of them. So even to the point where I was like, I didn't know which was which, because they, to your point, they even had the same, almost the same, or the same profile pic, I think,
Yep.
So, and I've seen it before with government agencies. So I was like, okay. I mean, shoot, even the president has 2 Twitter accounts. A lot of people don't know that he's got 2 of them. So it's like, that didn't draw a red flag to me. But to your point, I was like, yeah, this is pretty crazy. Now, unfortunately, the reason why it was plausible to me is you are seeing officials doing pretty crazy things. Like,
Absolutely.
I want to stay on this for a little while. I don't want to change the subject, but I eventually want to get into the decisions that were made by the government yesterday, the local government. But you're saying something about healthcare.
Oh, I was saying I have some practice with disinformation, working in healthcare, just with the COVID-19, especially in March and April. It was a lot of not really policing, but going through, and if I saw something that maybe a friend or family member had posted that looked maybe a little bit suspicious to me, or if it was true, that I would definitely want to know that information to be true so that I can properly educate myself and inform people. I just have gotten in the habit of kind of checking twice or 3 times before I'm reposting things or sharing things.
And you're right, because I think I'm usually better than most folks, but I do find myself sometimes, like, I put something, I was like, nope, that was satire or it's wrong. But especially in these times right now, you do have to be careful. But I'll even go further. There's a lot of things that I come across that are true, and I still don't share it. So I don't know if you've seen some articles, but they talked about how a lot of people are saying don't share the video of the shooting. I was one of those people. I am one of those people. So I had so many people sharing the video. Um, I was one of those people saying, I'm not sharing this video. Just take my word for it. The guy, it's not the greatest look. Just take my word for it. It's not the greatest look. Now, I mean, maybe we should get into that first. So when I first saw the video, maybe it's my military background, I don't know. But when I first saw the video, my first statement was, why did he reach into the car? So even in my world and on our side of the house, I was that guy in my group where everyone's like, Ray, what are you even asking that for? My first thing I asked was, why would he reach into the car? Now, as I processed the entire event more and more, watched it enough times, I then later noticed that there was 5 police officers. I then began to ask, how did he even get that far? I then remembered he wasn't the one on the clock at that moment. They were. He is not the one that I was paying as a taxpayer in that moment. Those 5 were the 5 I was paying as a taxpayer. So, but yeah, at first glance, you forget all this stuff. And that's what I was asking. I was like, I was saying things like, if a guy reaches into the car, I could never ask another man or woman to wait for him to get out of the car to find out what he's holding. Maybe I would take that chance myself, but I could never ask another human being to do that. Those are my words. And I think what finally slapped me back into a proper state of mind, he didn't even say it to me directly. I saw a guy in line say it. He said, we need to stop sending in these scared cops into neighborhoods they don't know. And that's what scared me back. That's what slapped me back to reality. My army time, you were not allowed to be a scared person and be in gun work. You were allowed to be a scared person and still be a human being. But this was not the business for you. This is not a business of being scared of your own shadow, of other people's shadow. The enemy didn't wear nice uniforms and stand out. They blended in with the population. They used people as shields. So for that reason, you could not be in those kind of units and be scared. And that's what this person brought to light for me, where we have too many people in the business who shouldn't be in the business.
I 100% agree with that. I had seen the video. When I saw the video, I actually did share it. So I chose to share it. And one was, I think, because I lived in Kenosha, and I felt like the people that I know needed to understand what was going on there. I mean, it didn't take me for everybody to know that what was going on. And at first I thought, oh my gosh, this is just cold-blooded murder. What else can you see? And then even moments later, I said, oh, I actually saw a lot of other things. I saw someone that was very, very bad at their job, that had a lack of decisiveness, a lack of,
And that's, let's just go through it. So
terrible.
Let's just go through it. So I started talking to some cops, some ex-military, were kind of mixed in. And so that was the first thing I saw. So I said, and again, for people who don't know gun tactics, long story short, you don't walk in front of the guns of the people on your team. Think about it. If you're going to go into a situation with backup, you want your backup to have a clean shot. If you're in front of them, you neutralize them. You make them obsolete, which is why when you have training on how to handle more than one assailant, gun or no gun, when you have training on how to handle more than one assailant, you're outnumbered. This is usually a part of the training. The training is about getting your opponents in a nice line. The old Chuck Norris movie. Get them, move around, circle around to where if you have more than one assailant or more than one opponent, get them to where they're tripping over each other. You want them clustered up. You don't want them circling around you.
Exactly.
So when you play that video, you'll notice how many times these guys are crossing fire at each other to where if any of them had to use their weapons, they're crossfire. They're shooting at each other. I was amazed that they actually did not shoot each other. I don't know if one or shot or two shot, but it doesn't matter. I'm amazed that a cop didn't shoot a cop. And that was the first thing the first big thing that I came as a realization when I really started digging into it. What that video shows, you did not have 5 cops against one guy. You had 5 people that just happened to be cops. There was no team effort. Watch it again if you've watched it. If you haven't watched it, I'm not going to ask you to watch it. But there was nothing resembling team tactics in that video. It was 5 people just traipsing about, and they just all happened to be wearing the same clothes. There was nothing teamwork oriented about that. There was nothing collaborative. They have not trained for this. I'll tell you right now, you can just go pick out 3 random infantry guys and tell us, you guys are now a team, a fire team. We have never met before. But if you tell us we're a fire team and we flip a coin a couple times to find out who's team leader, I guarantee you we will be able to look like a combat unit that's been training for months with each other, years with each other. I guarantee you we will be able to do that. What I saw in that video is you cannot do that with police officers, at least not at the level of training they have. I'm telling you right now, there was a bank robbery down the street. I could yell out, who's Army? Who's Marines? And we could start coming up with a combat plan and engaging the situation. What I saw was cops don't have that. I don't care if they were prior military, because what that means is they were probably supply or MP or something. They weren't combat tactics. And as a group, they are not trained to handle situations. The guy shouldn't have made it that far, first off. Second off, The fact that there was 2 cops that close to him is the wrong answer. There should have only been 1 if 1 was going to be that close. That was ridiculous. Sectors of fire did not exist. Crazy, as crazy as it sounds, Jacob controlled the situation more than those 5 police officers did. And that is why we dip into the realm of unprofessionalism. 5-on-1, and he was controlling that situation. That 47-second clip, he was controlling that situation. Now, unfortunately, it didn't stop there. Cops decided to do a cordon. They're going to cordon off the area. They decided to do 2 layers of yellow tape. I'm going to tell the police the same thing I tell constitutionalists. Paper doesn't stop bullets, and it doesn't stop people. Constitutionalists are those people that say, I have these rights. You know what? Put that Constitution up against your chest. Tell me if it stops bullets. That tape did not stop all those people were coming. The police lined up their cars in the street when what they should have done is, what happens when they have a really bad accident? They go up a couple blocks out and they start detouring people. That's what they start doing. You can't get in with the cars. Because the cops massed on center all their effort right there on the street at that time. It allowed the community and outer communities to mass their efforts around the police. There was no control of the situation. Now, unfortunately, it didn't stop there. And that's how you know it's a leadership issue. Next, it escalated. Someone got the bright idea to put out a curfew. I want to say this happened about 7. So the shooting was anywhere from 5:10 to 5:30. I think the shooting happened around 5:10. I started getting pings at 5:30. No, it was before 7 because they said effective at 7 p.m. a curfew goes into effect. Now you might say, what's wrong with that, Ray? Here's the problem. If you are the people in charge and you put out a line in the sand that you can't enforce, you have lost all chance of maintaining control and authority. They, in no way, shape, form, or fashion, had the resources to enforce a curfew. Don't put out something you can't hold up to. And so what you saw happen is, at first, people started dispersing. I mean, you had some people being fooled with other people leaving. The word then got out that, we're still out here and ain't nothing happening. That's what you started seeing going through chatter. We're still out here. There's too many of us. And that's when you saw a re-swelling later in the night. They did not have the resources to enforce a curfew. One of my first times on deployment, we were riding out through a market village, 4 Humvees. And I don't remember exactly how, but one of the Humvees hit another vehicle and the door got just taken off. Now, an up-armored Humvee door, I got to say, bro, it's at least 300 pounds, maybe 350 pounds. So we had to stop the caravan because, the U.S. government says don't leave any equipment behind. So me and this other guy, we were given instruction to shuttle out there and grab the door. But before we run out, set up a perimeter around the Humvees, which, especially when it's your first time, the last thing you ever want to be doing is stopping. Stopping sucks. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, it's my first time, but I'm trying to act like I fit in and everything. And one of the more experienced guys, he walks up to me and he says, so I'll just say what he said. He said, if we hold down all of our triggers, we have 20 seconds of trigger time. So if you don't think we can kill all of them in 20 seconds, don't fire a single round. That's all he said to me. And I looked around and I saw the people out in this market, and you got two stories up and everyone's surrounded. And I kind of did some quick math. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think we have that many bullets. So since we can't kill them all, we kill no one. I don't see that attitude, that experience demonstrated in the last 36 hours in this town. That curfew, not being able to enforce it, was insightful. Even how the fact that we're not sure which one of those Twitter accounts is the actual police department, the fact that the police department has not spoken on that directly, stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely stupid.
I totally agree.
It is like you are asking for it. The fact that the mayor and everyone is talking about, we want you to be peaceful. They should also be saying, they don't have to use my words, but also you jackasses online riling people up, you're not helping. Stop. They're not animals. They're not thugs. We're not going to go open season on them. You are just as much the problem as the people throwing the Molotov. You are just as much an agitator. And you are just as much an enemy to Kenosha as a person who throws the Molotov. You inciting them and giving them juice, getting them riled up. You are equally an enemy, if not more, because you are what gave them a lot of the reasoning and justification. And you don't even live here. You're not even from here. Unfortunately, not all. Like I said, I saw elected politicians saying that crap. But that is what needs to happen, to where, everything's connected. If I had some soldiers putting out material while we're overseas about desecrating the Quran, no, that's not funny.
Right.
You literally just made us some new enemies.
Right. Well,
I thought about this.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I
was
was
just going to continue on that, but I got more. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that was one of the reasons that I wanted to talk with you today is that I don't think that people realize that beyond just like healing internally within America between blacks and whites, there are entities that wish America not to succeed. There are active people, organizations, countries, governments, whatever, that are out there to undermine what we have, our democracy and our country here. They want to see it fall apart, and they also have Twitter. They are capable of creating a Facebook page. They can find a cute girl to make that profile picture so that you add them as a friend, and then they have something that aligns a little bit with what you're trying to get across, and then you share what they have. And it's totally just to rip apart America. And I wanted to share, I just sent you a picture in the Facebook message, but this is, I was looking up this one quotation, and it was from a magazine called The Star of the West. And just so happens that in this issue that this quotation is from, has this picture from Kenosha, Wisconsin.
Okay.
And this is
hold on. 19. You sent it to me via messenger?
Yeah. This is a Baha'i gathering in Kenosha, Wisconsin in the 1920. No later than 1921.
How did you send it to me? Do you send it here?
Oh, it's saying that there's no internet connection. Well, it'll get through to you at some point in time.
Well, hold on. Can I find it online?
Yeah. Let me.
Hi, Kenosha. What year?
I'll send it to your email.
Okay, yeah. So while you're doing that, let's see. I got a lot of comments.
I think
here.
I got you.
Let's see. Let me just go through a couple of these. Oh, this is pretty funny. So Eric here, I guess we were talking about how tough you were selling vacuum cleaners.
Oh,
Eric says,
did I show up to one of their houses?
Yeah, Eric says, try selling life insurance. At least men will acknowledge they need a knife. Right. So I don't know if you're saying you sold life insurance door to door, brother, but yeah, that sounds pretty tough too. Like I could imagine like sitting there with my combat buddies, and like a guy comes and is like, "Yeah, well, I sold steak knives door to door." I'm like, "That's actually pretty tough, dude." Like, I'm pretty sure I would have quit 2 hours in, and that includes the commute to the area and back. Yeah.
I got nothing bad to say against. I think everybody should do door-to-door sales at some point in time in their life, just like everybody should wait tables at some point in time in their life.
Yeah, I agree. Everyone should wait tables, and I'll say too, everyone should have a moment of answering calls at a call center.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that'd be a good one too.
Yeah, that would be a
I'm
really
amazed
good
with
one.
our front desk staff here sometimes. Yeah, so I sent that to your email now.
Okay.
But it's a picture of a gathering in Kenosha in 1920, at very latest 1921, because this was this issue was published in 1921. But I don't think that we understand that, Kenosha has this rich, wonderful history around race unity.
I don't know if
And
I can make it bigger, but for those looking at it, this is a picture. Underneath it says "colored in white attending Baha'i gathering in Kenosha, Wisconsin," and this definitely looks like the 1950s, bro, or earlier. Honestly, bro, I would have guessed like 1920s.
yeah,
Looking at
this
how they're
is
dressed.
at very latest is 1921.
Okay, I thought you said
Yeah.
50s. Yeah, I'm just looking at the clothing, but yeah, this is definitely an
But this is
which is
before.
interesting because you're not going to see interracial photos like this in Kenosha's municipal building. None. I spent a lot of time walking through there. You're not going to see it.
This is the history of Kenosha is really there. But later on in this magazine, it went on to say that. So Abdul Baha, he actually visited Kenosha, Wisconsin. He walked right down Sheridan Road where all this is going on. I have no doubt that he's looking over the people of Kenosha while all this is going on, and I hope that doesn't escalate more. But he said that he had something to say about the destruction of property. So this is what he had to say about the destruction of property. He said the destruction of 2 or 3 houses is of no importance. But the importance lies in what is coming, which is the destruction of America. The Arabs have many proverbs. For instance, heavy rain begins with the drops before it pours. So he foresaw that there is nothing else that will tear this country apart except for conflicts between the races.
Well, and that's very specific. But if you look at a lot of your major civilizations and societies, um, even though we talk about Hannibal, Rome had already fallen apart from within before Hannibal ever came to those gates.
Mm-hmm.
Rome was already in decline. It was already being written about by historians like Vegetius. So America, some people have to talk about China and Russia and all that stuff. America's, or even, the hippie socialist commies, America's going to fall from within because of its inability to see itself, not because of its inability to see threats, an inability to see itself. The stuff we're dealing with right now, we're dealing with because it wasn't handled before.
Exactly.
This was work that should have been handled generations ago, and it hasn't been handled.
Right. And for the people that are out there saying, talking about the destruction of property and how can this happen? If they're not going, you need to go a step further. You need to unpack that and look at what is the root cause of this. And if we're not actively addressing that root cause of it, then you're going to see this continue. In Chinese medicine, we talk about the root and the branch. So the branch is the symptom that you see. The root is, and if you just ever address the branch, you might get some symptomatic relief, but it'll come back because you've never addressed the root. And that's what we've seen over the last several decades, is we've gotten this symptomatic addressing of these little things here and there, but never truly addressing the root of the issue, which is it's in the hearts of men, in the hearts of our citizens.
I got another one here that I want to talk on. And Andrew asks, and what even is a good cop? Does a good cop have to have a gun? I think people can probably guess half my response. So why don't you go first? Does a cop
Sure.
even need to have a gun?
Well, that's an interesting thing. So, if you do any research into the history of the police force, that was actually a really big conversation that they were having as police forces started to pop up around the country, was whether or not they should carry firearms. And at the time, many of them already were, but it was sort of decided that, that gives them a little more ability to be intimidating and the ability to control crowds, particularly because a lot of early police forces were really designed at squashing out strikes, labor strikes. So I don't think that a good cop has to have a gun, just in the same way that a good doctor doesn't have to use a medication. A good teacher doesn't need textbooks. It's the same sort of, a profession is not the tools that you use.
Okay. I will say the tools don't make the professional.
Yeah, that's what I mean. The tools don't make the profession. Yeah. That's what
I don't feel comfortable saying to my general contractor, you really don't need tools if you're a good general contractor. Having said that,
right.
Missing a tool shouldn't stop them from completing the job, or not having the best tool. I kind of face this in my line of work where people are like, "Oh, you're a data scientist." I'm like, "Yeah, I am." It's like, so tell me about your tool stack. I'm like, what do you care? When you pay a guy to build your house, you're like, show me your hammers, show me your drills. Are you using Ryobi or are you using DeWalt? Do you do that? I go, if no, you're wasting both of our time doing that to me. Asking me, am I R or Python? Or, am I Kafka or RabbitMQ? You don't care. You might not realize it, but you don't care. So in that way, I say, yes, the tools don't make the professional. Having said that, I wouldn't remove all tools from a professional. I was
Nor
trying
would
to look
I.
up.
And I'm not even saying that cops shouldn't carry guns. I think that a certain amount of arms are necessary to maintain peace within an area. But it's all, even going back to this incident that happened on Sunday, is there's all these little steps that go up to the point of using that tool, where any other number of tools in his toolkit could have been used, and avoiding that one that, frankly, is going to get a lot of attention.
So I don't know if people have ever seen this. Okay, I just want to show this. And so if you've never heard of this, you can find it in many places, but this guy's name is Robert Peele, Peele. Okay. Am I able to make this bigger? So Robert Peele, okay. 1829, Sir Robert Peel established the London Metropolitan Police Force. He became known as the father of modern policing, and his commissioners established a list of policing principles that remain as crucial and urgent today as they were 2 centuries ago. Now, they contain 3 core ideas and 9 principles. Now, I'm talking about this because this has been a conversation that me and others have had where we're saying the police today would be so much better off if they actually practice these things. So let's start with the three core ideas. The goal is preventing crime, not catching criminals. If the police stop crime before it happens, we don't have to punish citizens or suppress their rights. An effective police department doesn't have high arrest stats. Its community has low crime rates. So I'm going to start with that one first. I'll put that in the thing there. If you look today, how we incentivize our police today, it is in fact an incentivization. Even our even not just the police, but even our our judicial system. It's conviction records, conviction rates. That's what it incentivizes, to the point where for people it makes sense to say, hey, we're going to this guy maybe is innocent and this is only a 5-year crime or a 3-month crime, but we're going to threaten him with 85 years in prison so he takes a plea. This is a big thing right now in the US of just piling on so much threat on people that they take pleas for things that they're innocent of because they can't run the risk. This is one of the dangers that we see with this mentality. So, that idea of changing the difference of what is success, the definition of success, I find that something that is not the worst idea personally. So that's the first core idea. The next one is the key to preventing crime is earning public support. Every community member must share the responsibility of community preventing crime, as if they were all volunteer members of the force. They will only accept this responsibility if the community supports and trusts the police. Now, keep in mind, this guy's from London. This is one of the bigger issues you have right now, because you have a lot of people who truly believe that the police as we know it was not designed for their interest. We don't have to get into whether they're right or not. I'm just stating the fact. They believe this. And I will argue that they have some evidence in their favor. You go back far enough, a lot of your police departments hail directly back to slave catching units. Now you can say, no, they're different now, but doesn't change the fact that's where they hail from.
Or so labor busting units.
Or labor busting or slave catching. I actually just learned this recently. Did you know one of the primary functions of the U.S. Marshals was slave catching?
I was aware of that, yes.
I did not know this. So you've already violated core idea 2. You have not achieved this. Next, the police earn public support by respecting community principles. Winning public approval requires hard work to build reputation. Enforcing the laws impartially, hiring officers who represent and understand the community, and using force is only a last resort. Well, we don't have to get into that one. We have a D- on that one. We have a D- on that one. I mean, nationally, locally, we don't handle that one very well. So those are the 3 core ideas. But let's look at these policing principles. Now, how crazy is this? This is 1829. 1, prevent crime and disorder as an alternative to their repression by military force and severity of legal punishment. Well, I guess Trump didn't read that one. 2, to recognize always that the power of the police to fulfill their functions and duties is dependent on public approval of their existence, actions, and behavior, and on their ability to secure and maintain public respect. This is the big one we have here. We have a culture that says, no, you serve the police, basically. You honor them. You revere them greater than yourself. That's what certain communities are being told. No, you bow down to the police. They don't work for you. Even though they say protect and serve, It's protect and serve what? Protect and serve who?
Right.
It should be assumed for all. And I would like to believe that most of the policemen that I sit down and have a good beverage with, it's for all in their minds, but it's not actually written on the cars. And we're seeing right now that maybe we're not all in agreement with that, or to what degree it should be an agreement. How about that? 4, to recognize always that the extent to which the cooperation of the public can be secured diminishes proportionately to the necessity of the use of physical force and the compulsion for achieving police objectives. That's what we just saw in the last 24 hours. The moment you start drawing lines in the sand, the moment you start threatening with force, you have lost. You've lost.
And it's losing the support of the community, which if you are a part of that community, it's hard to say that you're a part of that community if you've lost the support of it.
Even if you don't care about being a part of the community, just think. I'll give another analogy. Imagine you're a bank robber in a room, and there's 11 people in the room. They're all unarmed, and you have a 6-shot revolver. And you say, anyone who makes a move catches a bullet. Nobody wants to get shot, but everybody knows you don't have enough bullets for all of them. That is not a comfortable situation, being the guy holding the gun. Coming back to my marketplace in Afghanistan, I hear a lot of conversation from men online, especially. Only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. Whenever I hear that, it's a guy that's never been in a situation where guns were had by all. I've never been in a situation where everybody was carrying a gun and half of them were on the opposite side. And I've said to myself, you know what? Really feels good holding this gun right now. I never started stroking that barrel saying, oh, sweet barrel. I don't know what I'd be feeling without you right now. It feels the same, bro. So that's what's missing in that one.
Yeah.
To seek and preserve public favor, not by pandering to public opinion, but by constantly demonstrating absolute impartial service to law and complete independence of policy, and without regard to the justice or injustice of the substance of individual laws, but ready offering of individual service and friendship to all members of the public without regard to their wealth or social standing, or ready exercise of courtesy and friendly good humor, and by ready offering of individual sacrifice in protecting and preserving life. So reading that one, you know what I think about people? I think about that 17-year-old kid in New York during stop and frisk, where he actually recorded them calling him a mutt. That's what I think about when I read that one. Messing with this kid who was expecting the police to mess with him, and for that reason, he had a recorder on him, and he recorded the police calling him a mutt.
I always, when you're reading that, I was thinking about what you've talked about many times about consistency. If they're going to be consistent about calling him a mutt, and if they were calling everybody a mutt,
oh yeah,
they're being consistent at least. And then you can, then if they lose their jobs, they lose their jobs, but they were consistent about it.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, and it's the same with this. If each instance was met with the same level of consistency, I think very clearly we would see what changes need to be made, and those would probably happen very quickly.
6.
Or at least we'd know consistently what not to do.
We'd probably be more aligned on how to move forward.
Yeah,
we're looking at the same picture. Because I think Will Smith said that the stuff's not happening more often; it's just being videotaped now. Mm-hmm. This is the same stuff that Rodney King and black men in the 70s and 80s were saying was going on. We just have videotape now, and we now get it out faster.
Yeah.
6, to use physical force only when the exercise of persuasion, advice, and warning is found to be insufficient to obtain public cooperation to an extent necessary to secure observance of law or to restore order, and to use only the minimum degree of physical force which is necessary on any particular occasion for achieving a police objective. So while this might seem like an easy one, why it's wrong, the thing that jumps out to me is achieving a police objective. Is a police objective that every officer does whatever he has to do to keep himself safe. I argue if that's the case, that's one of the biggest issues right now with the police force. As an infantry soldier, I was never led to believe that, Ray, you do whatever you got to do to keep yourself safe. Instead of actually searching and clearing rooms, if you got to throw grenades through windows, do that, Ray. If you got to play it safe and just murder everybody in this village square because one of them might be bad, do it, Ray. I was never given that. In fact, I was given the exact opposite. I'm hearing the public, well, I support the police doing whatever they got to do to get home. Then they're not police. We know we call it to protect and serve, but I really think they should take on the more military approach of so that others may live. It is a sacrifice. It is a voluntary, sacrificial decision to serve others, to sacrifice, to pour yourself, possibly all of yourself, into others. Now, long term. So I'm not saying if a criminal is threatening to shoot you and you say, I'd rather die than shoot him back. No, I'm not going to go that far. But coming back to that video, there were so many opportunities to control that situation that were just not taken.
Well, and that's an interesting thing too. So it's the minimal amount of force necessary to achieve an objective. And is that something, I'm curious if that's something that's been studied?
I didn't think it'd say it, but I agree with you. What are the police objectives? I think if we truly had an open and transparent police force, maybe we don't have it memorized as citizens, but we should be able to pull it up. Kenosha police objectives. What are the police objectives? I don't know. What are they?
And having a clear understanding about what the minimal use of force to achieve those is. that leaves it really open, I think.
No, I agree with you, because I saw a thread the other day where someone's like, well, why did you shoot him in the leg? And I was like, you do not want police officers shooting people to wound. It's possible it might result in less deaths, but I promise you it will increase shootings. So right now, as far as I know, there is no police department in the United States that teaches about shooting the wound. Anyone can jump out there and correct me if they know something else, but to my knowledge, there is not a single police force in the country that teaches shooting to wound. And that's what you want. Having said that, they are teaching to shoot.
Right.
And they're not making that bar high enough.
And I've taken some basic gun safety classes, and you don't ever unholster your gun unless you're prepared to shoot it. So when I saw all those guns out at that individual,
they were already out.
Jacob, yeah, they were ready to. I mean,
and you're right.
Means to me they're ready to take his life.
Because once your weapon's already out, guess what you can't do? You can't wrestle with the guy now. You can't tackle a guy with your gun out. So you maybe you don't know it consciously, but you've already decided how this is going to go down. Yeah. You already decided.
Yeah, and that level of that lack of professionalism on their part, like if that was like for myself within healthcare, if I reacted or painted myself into a corner where the only, I had to make this very rash decision, that's called malpractice. It would be a lawsuit and a loss of my license.
7, to maintain at all times a relationship with the public that gives reality to the historic tradition, that the police are the public and that the public are the police. The police being only members of the public who are paid to give full-time attention to duties which are incumbent on every citizen in the interest of community welfare and existence. We kind of covered this in a sideways way, in my opinion. We talked about work and a men's group that I'm with. So we talked about how some of your most bitter people are people who claim they work for the community. Think of nonprofits and such like that, where they have deluded themselves into thinking that the community owes them something. And what we talk about is that you shouldn't be doing work for people. You should be doing work for the sake of the work. The work itself is your reward. So with that one, that's really what jumps out at me, is that we have this hero complex or hero myth given that it's given out a little too easy, I would argue. A little too easy. Oh, did I lose you, Steven? Oh, he's coming back in. Oh, there you are. I was like, oh, I must have lost you there. So,
Yeah.
I was just saying, like, that idea of just like your military. I even said this about the military before we started talking about the police. The military and the police, they are not the cream of society. They are not the cream. They are a cross section of society. I'll speak for the military. There's a reason we built Leavenworth. There's a reason why there is a military prison. All the crimes you can think of that happen in society, not only do they happen in the military, they happen in the same, if not more, frequency. Same with police. All the crimes that happen in the public, they happen with the police. The same, if not more. I'm talking from embezzlement all the way to rape and murder. That thing we just had it this week, that California serial killer who killed like all those people over 30 years, that was a cop. So cops even have serial killers. 8, to recognize always the need for strict adherence to police executive functions, and to refrain from even seeming to usurp the powers of the judiciary of avenging individuals or the state, and of authoritatively judging guilt and punishing the guilty. I would boil this down quite simply to: don't decide someone's guilty as soon as you see them.
Yep.
One of the loudest voices that should be denouncing people mentioning Jacob's record is the police. One of the loudest voices. I don't care if the guy, had 18 outstanding warrants. They weren't kill orders. They weren't orders to execute him. We had those kind of orders in the military. Shoot on sight, kill capture. The police, to my knowledge, don't get kill capture orders. Maybe the FBI or the marshals do. I don't know. I'd have to ask some buddies. But I'm pretty sure local PD did not get kill capture orders or shoot on sight orders. So that's what I read when I read that one. And finally here, to recognize always that the test of police efficiency is the absence of crime and disorder, and not the visible evidence of police action in dealing with them. And that's what we saw yesterday. We have people celebrating the evidence of police action instead of mourning that it was even necessary. Or forget the word mourning, realizing there's going to be a cost. There's absolutely going to be a cost to the fact that we had to provide evidence of police action.
And I pray that it's only physical property.
I remember telling someone once, they're like, well, so you just support tearing down buildings? And I'm like, do you see me out there? That's what I always say when people ask me, do you support rioting, Ray? I'm like, do you see me out there? If I thought, yes, I supported it, I would be out there. I go, what you're really asking me is, do I have an issue with others doing it? And my answer is, honestly, if, let's just say the system killed my child, or threaten to kill my child. Ask me how many buildings are worth my child's life. Ask me what percentage of every standing edifice in this world is worth my child's life. I'm pretty confident I'm going to say 100%. Level every building.
If I am having conversations with people that are out there looting and burning down buildings, I would be trying to talk them down from doing that again, of course.
Of course. And that's what we were doing yesterday.
Right. But it's the same sort of conversation
and maybe
you were
what we're
having
really saying is
with those guys
at
Waukesha.
Right.
It's like the same sort of conversation.
You get to the point where it's like I'm not even going to speak for them because I mean I didn't throw any Molotovs last night. I didn't throw any bricks at any cops. So I'll just speak for myself. It gets exhausting. Not so exhausting that I've lit up a Molotov. I have better things to do with some vodka. I don't buy the cheap stuff. But actually, before I get off Tavar, so let's finish with Andrew here before I go down that road. So you answered, was you have a gun? Here's my answer to Andrew. I don't think all cops need a gun. I think giving every cop a pistol, it puts this super heightened alertness, like anything could happen at any time, which is not wrong. But I don't think it deals with magnitudes. Why not have protocol where they keep the guns in the car? I go out. I'm concealed carry. I don't keep my weapon on me all the time. It only stays in the car, honestly. Stays in the car. I take that risk of going out. That's my risk of going out. Well, I love going out to restaurants. Everyone knows me. I'm a big whiskey guy. I can't take my my weapon into the bar because I'm scared. The world says, Ray, if you're truly that scared, stay your ass at home. Drink at home. And Ray goes, well, that's not no fun. I goes, I'll leave my gun in the car. You make choices.
Right.
If you're still scared of the world, stay home. Otherwise, play nice. That's what I see the world saying. So I don't think all policemen need guns. But no, I think there are wolves out there. And I think I do want a certain section of the police who are just as bad as those guys. I want wolf hunters.
And I want them super well trained.
I want them extremely trained. You hear me say that a lot. If I'm on a local police commission for a transition to make things better, my first step will be to increase salaries. That'll be my first step. My second step will be to increase the budget for training and the diversity of the training. I didn't say diversity training, the diversity of the training. Number 3, I would say, make it twice as hard to become a cop. And number 4, make it twice as hard to stay a cop. Those are my first 4 steps. You can keep it simple if you like, fun little sayings. Double the pay, double the training, make it twice as hard to stay a cop, make it twice as hard, or make it twice as hard to become a cop, make it twice as hard to stay a cop. That'll fix a lot. So for me, I think a gun is a tool. But coming back to my data science world, if I have a data scientist that always uses the same model or algorithm for everything, that's a red flag. You want to impress me, you show me when you don't need to use a tool. And right now, we have a whole bunch of cops running around using the same tool too often. Mm-hmm. To the point where you hear them crying about the fact non-lethal, how it puts their life in jeopardy. I hear you. Become a dentist, bro. We actually have a shortage for dentists. Quit. Become a dentist. This is not the life for you. You're not built for this. If you don't like the way I'm saying that, hit me up on PM. We can meet and have a private conversation about it. But I promise you, face to face, it's going to go the same way or worse. You're not built for the life. You're not a bad person. You're not a lesser man or woman, but you are not built for gun work. Turn it in. The world needs more dentists. So that's my answer. I think, yes, a good cop can have a gun. I think the question you're really asking me, Andrew, is do all cops need guns? And my answer is no. That's my thought on that one there. So let's see here. I see some more. Let's see here. Let's see. You might. I put this in two. Let's try to take the first step. I'll read it because it's too big. Why not have standards? As volunteer firefighters, we have our mask fitted periodically. Why not do medical cards every 2 years like truck drivers have, since their tools can be used to kill? And include in the medical card a mental component. There are things that first responders see on a daily basis that are the things of nightmares. And for some, maybe even, okay, so I see where this is going. So basically, why not do a head check on these guys every 2 years? Because they might be hella crazy. Okay, so I personally feel that's a convenient thing to say about the other side of town. I've seen this a lot. Like, let's just make sure they're not nut bags and they're not nut jobs. I don't personally see evidence that what we're seeing right now is just a whole bunch of sociopaths or schizotypicals or all the other words I can't remember when I took that class. Schizo, this, that, this. I'm not seeing evidence that that's what's going on here, personally, but I have no credentials in that world. What I feel that we saw and we're seeing too often is normal people, whatever that means in America, because I've seen studies that say that 30% of America does have a mental health issue. So I don't know what normal means. Let's just say a random pick of an American, put him in a uniform. I see more evidence that false expectations, lack of proper support, and very poor training is the cause of most of what we're seeing. As we just talked about earlier, how they're going around the car. That wasn't like, oh, these guys are crazy. That looked like these guys have the improper training. That's what it looked like to me. So I'm not saying no to this one, Eric. But you can't mental health your assessment in and knowing how to properly handle a complex, quickly moving situation.
Well,
Thoughts?
and well, to that point, there's the number one killer of cops and other first responder type people is heart disease, which a large part is due to stress. So it's not that people are going into the profession, not jobs, but like you said, there's not that support, which then can kind of come back on the community too, about providing some support as far as being able to debrief, to decompress, to de-stress, taking that stress back home, all those different things that can come from that. So I have, every time that I have interactions with police officers, firefighters, whoever I can, I talk to them about acupuncture because that's what I do, and that's a form of is one way that people can manage their stress.
I look at take NFL or something like that. These jobs, or no, let's not be so dramatic. Social worker. I think the average social worker burns out in like 3 to 5 years. It's a very stressful job.
Yeah.
I think coming back to the point about not every cop needs a gun. I think a lot of these things are talking about mental health. Why can't we make that a police role? No gun, but mental health specials. Why can't we make that a police role? So maybe you answer calls where there's a mental health issue. Okay. A family services issue. Make that a police role. Why not? Not
I know
every
that
person in the
some
military is
forces are
infantry.
starting to do that now.
Yeah. So what I see there is, let's say someone does start out doing, let's call it the gun work. And they're like, you know what? Whether they come forward or maybe there is an evaluation, it's like, you know what? You've done some good work. Or not even wait to get that far. Maybe you decide you only do that job for a set amount of time, unless you go to like special operations, SWAT or something like that. You move on to something else. We want you to be a well-rounded person. We don't want you just doing one job for 20 years. That's not good for the community. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe the research shows it is. It isn't. But my point is, don't make a police officer feel like if I can't keep doing this, then I'm going to be tossed and discarded. It should be, okay, we should get to a point where a police officer says, you know what, I've been doing this role for 3 years and I'm burnt out and I don't think I'm any good anymore out there doing this. And the response is, okay, let's see what we can get going for you.
Right. And not,
let's see where
you're
we
done.
can. Yeah. Versus,
there's,
all right, so resignation.
There's that threat of financial ruin that drives people to stay in all kinds of jobs, you know, and
right.
and where
Honestly,
they're just not.
It's funny
cut out for it
because
anymore.
a lot of these people who claim their Blue Lives Matter, I think they disrespect police more than anyone. They are humans. Don't dehumanize them for wanting a nice house of their own, for wanting to retire decently. And, you know, give them that option too. Give them an opportunity to kind of take, you know, okay, I fought the good fight. I wouldn't want to be forced to have to, you know, do combat for 20 years straight. Yes, if I choose it, I choose it. But could you imagine a military where like everyone had to do exactly that? First of all, we'd be a crappy fighting force, but that would be a tough run, a very tough run. So, yeah,
take care of the people around you. If you know any police officers, I mean, yeah, it's to me, it's the same sort of thing. Like I have a couple friends that are police officers, and when these things happen, I got pulled over the other day for
okay.
a taillight out, and the police officer came over. He was, you know, friendly, but you know, in the back of my mind, I'm wondering, just like, how are you doing, man? Are you doing okay with all this that's going on? This has got to be a stressful job to come to every day. I'm sure I try to give people the benefit of the doubt most of the time. Like, I'm sure you're just a good, basic human being that wants to have a good life and be happy and make better life for your kids. So if you
You
know any
know,
police officers,
I
reach
try
out
to
to them with
balance
some
it.
love too.
I try
Yeah,
to
reach
balance
out to
it,
them with some
man.
love too.
It's like I say hey to every police officer I see, but you know, I am out now giving speeches. You know what I'm saying? I am out giving speeches, and so yeah, I have people drop me off a couple blocks away from where I'm giving the speech. I then Uber in, Uber out. The Waukesha one, I didn't know what to expect. I had someone drop me
Sure.
off 20 minutes away. I Ubered 20 minutes in, Ubered 20 minutes out, because
You trust in God, but you still tie up your camel.
I trust in God, but I still use army tactics of not taking the same way out that you came in.
Sure,
You know, you change
exactly.
up the route. If you don't want to get
Yeah.
blown up, you change up the route because you just
Yeah.
don't know. And that's why I can empathize with police officers. I think I wouldn't want to be doing random traffic stops, not knowing who you pulled over. Yeah, sometimes it's just a
Yeah.
broken taillight. Other times it's a very nasty dude and we've seen those. I actually had a buddy from the Coast Guard. He left the Coast Guard, became a police officer in Georgia, and got shot dead on a random traffic stop. You know, some kind of like a broken taillight thing. Wasn't expecting it. Right there. Wasn't even 25 years old. He's dead. So
Yeah.
it's real. And And it's hard to balance when you know both sides. I come from a background where a lot of friends are military and police. And as I said, um, I would think because of that background, I probably I've probably buried more friends than the average American. Okay. Now keep in mind, I'm a very specialized population. Parents are military, then I was military and I was combat. So it's just the nature of the population, the subpopulation. Um, but I'm also African American. So even before Black Lives Matter, family, friends and family getting shot under suspicious situations, dealing with the police, that's been there since the beginning. So I'm not Shaft, but I've always been in the middle, of these two worlds. Coming back to my original response where I was like, well, why did he reach into the car? I got that part in my head. Then I got the other part was like, why were your guns out to begin with? And why didn't you control the situation? So I think we've talked about some great stuff here, but I mean, what are the answers? What are we thinking? I mean, I like some of the things we said. Actually, looks like someone else did too. We talked about specific roles of police officers. Um, it's unreasonable to ask someone to play all the roles. Again, coming back to tech, I'll read those job descriptions sometimes, and I'll talk to the recruiter, and they'll be like, "Oh, so do you understand what they're asking for?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, it all makes sense." They're like, so you're good with them? Like, no, absolutely not. That's not a role. That's a team. That's an entire team. You just described a team. I think what we ask police to do these days, that is a fire team. That's not a person. That's not a role. That is a team. But you're asking of one person. So I think we covered that there. The purpose, who serves who? Do the people serve the police? Are we just here to throw awns on them and burn incense in their name, or do they serve us? Clarifying that relationship and the responsibilities of that relationship. Coming back to, we should be able to pull up the objectives. And we didn't say it articulately, but you hear a lot of this. There's a war going on outside talk. I think that if you're going to say it, you need to start living it. I used to say, guys are like, well, we're at war, and that's why I act the way I act. I'm like, people at war don't sit on a Barca lounger 5 days a week. They go run every morning. They make sure they can be prepared when they need to move in the middle of a war situation. They train, they prepare. I think we as a community, because most of us, these conversations here, we don't know criminals. We don't know criminals. I'll tell you who we do know. Coming back to our topic here, we know agitators. We know the people online saying that those people are animals, or I hope the National Guard comes in and shoots them all. We know those people. So maybe that's where we should go. What can we do? What can we take from this conversation? I don't know any gangsters out in the streets. And I have no interest in walking up and down the streets trying to find out who they are. None at all. I say we work with what we have. We have people within our spheres that when things like this happen, they throw gasoline on the fire. I think we can hold these people more accountable. We don't even have to ask the moderate, what Martin Luther King called the moderate white. We don't have to ask them to step up and become freedom fighters. We can pause that for right now. But the people running their mouths, not making things better, I think we can engage them and say, hey, you know what? Why don't you just be quiet right now? You're not making things much better at this time. I think we could do that.
Yeah, well, I just have seen many comments of, well, what does all of this looting and rioting, what good does it do? And I just want to say the exact same thing to their comments. What good is this comment doing?
I asked the guy that yesterday again, man. So a guy he wrote on his page again, like the most middle class, you know, I ride my John Deere mower on Saturdays type dude, right? He writes on Facebook, hey, um, don't commit any crimes out there because Kenosha's finest, they're going to be looking at you. I'm like, who are you talking to? Who in your social circle was sitting there loading up crates of Molotov cocktails and they saw you write that and they're like, whoa, whoa, stand down, guys. Blake said to chill out.
I'm not
Whoa,
laughing at
like
Blake.
guys just yeah, I just imagine like a room full of guys just loading up magazines, like it's go time. And one of them's like, whoa, whoa, you see Facebook? Billy said to stand down. It's like you don't know people like that. So you just said it to be a jackass. It's like, chill out.
I'm going to send you something else. I'm
Okay.
going to take off, but I'm going to send you something else. It was a letter sent out by the Baha'is. Yeah, I'm always talking about the Baha'i faith, but it was about social media and the implications of using social media and how it has an impact on the world around us and how to. I came away with it of like how to responsibly use social media, I guess. So I'd love to read through it with you sometime and get your thoughts on it because I like the way you think.
Yeah, absolutely, brother. Let's do it another time. Thanks for rapping with me. I think I'll probably try to wrap up some more ideas. See anybody else to jump in and probably shut this one down and might be setting back up later tonight down there. One of the local, actually, I'm not sure, but I think might be the only black business owner out downtown in the area. We were talking about setting up shop down at his spot tonight. So we'll see how that goes. So you might see me come back on a little bit later. So we'll see how
Sounds
it goes.
good. Be
All right,
safe.
sir.
My thoughts and a lot of love go out to everybody in Kenosha.
Most stuff, man. So for those of you still sticking here, we've just been talking about the last 72 hours, starting with me having a conversation with local White Lives Matter and All Lives Matter, and going all the way to, just engaging different groups about their thoughts and watching people online and how they're handling items, and just kind of talking about why do you do the things you do and what do you expect to have happen from them. So what I was focusing on here with this titling was the people who act like because they're not holding the Molotov cocktail, they don't have a level of responsibility for what we're seeing happening. Egging on people, building up this insightfulness, or inciting a riot. A lot of people, well, my actions don't cause anyone else to think about things. Well, we actually have legal things called inciting riots. You incited, you got people riled up. So let's talk about the people who are sitting there online saying, so there's this one picture. Actually, let me pull that picture up here. There's a picture of the fires from last night. I actually made it my background. Let's go ahead and throw that up there. So, a picture of it's a local car lot. It's a car lot that's adjacent to a church. And that church has had this sign, Black Lives Matter, up for quite a while now. And so the church themselves, they have a web page, they have a Facebook page. And when you go to their web page, what you see is the church saying a lot of things like, hey, prayers for everyone, well wishes. But when you go to the church's threads, so the church is here saying, we at Bradford UU pray for Jacob Blake and his family. Again, Very Christian things. We pray for the family. What you see in the comments Ricky Royce, how to not get shot by the police. Obey police orders. Stand still. Do not walk to your car. Do not open your door. Do not reach for an object in your car. That would be great advice that 7 people agree with old Ricky Royce about. The problem is Breonna Taylor did all those things, and she still got shot. Matt Clayton, in response to the church saying, we have nothing but prayers. Matt Clayton says, you'll have to do that from praying from an undisclosed location. BLM is about to burn your church down, and your city's Democrat mayor doesn't seem to care. Juliana Richards Kincaid. I've been following her stuff all day. She's saying this to the church. This is your fault. Keep feeding hate with your signs and racism against all Christians. Stop attacking the families of Kenosha with your segregating hate. Every life matters. Remember the people I talked to this weekend. Every life matters. Even the ones that are not violent Marxists. Meaning, when you say Black Lives Matter, you only care about violent Marxists. Jesus sees your hate. Now, here's what I always point out to people. This is Juliana Kincaid's Facebook page. Juliana is from Lapper, Michigan. Juliana does not care about Kenosha. Oh, man, she even posted on her personal page. She has a picture of the fire at the same car lot. And she says, and I quote, "Get out of Kenosha is the word. Antifa formally and publicly called all comrades to Kenosha 3 hours ago. Thousands heading that way now. 2-day riot in Kenosha, then on to DC as planned. Pray for Kenosha. The cops won't help." Peaceful protesters in Kenosha just burned down 5 fire trucks. They are now torching buildings all around town, including residential high-rises. And then your usual, I'm a Christian, that kind of stuff. And she's doing this all over the day. She did one for Detroit. I really hope this is a Russian bot page, but I don't know. Who knows? But I'll say one thing. Juliana doesn't care about this area. The people who talk like her do not care. It's kind of like when I was a kid, I didn't get as many fights as you would think. I got into enough with my mouth, but I didn't get as many fights as you might think. I remember that some of the fights, you didn't really want to fight and the other kid didn't want to fight. So the other kids would kind of get around you and try to get the fight started. They'd have all these tactics. So I remember one of the tactics was they put like a blade of grass or a stick on both of your shoulders, and they tell you just flick the stick off. And that magically started a fight. Like, don't you flick this stick off my shoulder. But that started a fight. That's what I see here happening with adults. We have adults here who are starting the fight. And then more, I remember being a kid, you had the people who, once the fight started, their main purpose in life was to yell, fight, 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 fight. That's what I'm seeing here. I'm seeing adults who that is their main purpose in life. Kind of like that 40-year-old man who I'm like, you woke up this morning and made a sign just because you don't like somebody. That's what I'm seeing online here. And we have I'm seeing this crazy um narrative. Like people will be like, well, Ray, I don't know if it's right that you're outing these people. You're calling them by name. And to the people who are thinking that, I, with all due respect, say, what the hell are you talking about? That lady I just showed, her page is open to the world. You can debate me on whether I'm being too dramatic, but I am saying these people are terrorists. They are literally terrorists. They are here to disrupt and to derail society. So I don't think I'm being a mean person here, or wrong, or I'm crossing any barriers by reading to you through social media what people are doing on social media. Now, friends and foes say, well, Ray, people could toss it right back at you. Absolutely. I wake up every day knowing that if I dare to stick my head out my social media window, someone could clap back at me. And I will tell you this right now, my house is not pristine, but I kind of got like this B rabbit 8 Mile mentality right now, bro. I've already said it. You go through my page, whatever you think you found, I've already said it. So why don't you tell these people something that they don't know about me? Hey, what's going on, man?
Yo, what's going on, sir?
So you was out there last night. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell the people what it looked like through your eye sockets?
Um, Charmaine Harris here, Kenosha, Kenosha
You
leader.
low volume, man.
Hold on. Can you hear me?
That's a little bit better, yeah.
Yeah, Charmaine Harris here, Kenosha leader here, doing a lot of work in the community. So, um, I don't want to say too much about myself, but yeah, last night was out there, and man, it was just one of those things where it's just like this is the aftermath of what happens when a situation that a shooting takes place, and people have so much trust in the leadership here and the police officers, and just to see that vivid video online, people was just outraged. And so I've spent some time out there, but before it got too dark, I had to leave, but um your topic is I wanted to jump on because it's always you know but they always want to focus on the aftermath, and then it depletes the original thing that started everything. Like everybody stopped talking about that, so now everybody focused on the aftermath of what started after the shooting. And so then it just gets people like, then they try to like box somebody like me in and say, oh, so you support the looting? And no, I don't. You know what I mean? But I'm not gonna tell nobody that's angry after a certain situation like this what to be doing while they're angry. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah. I I got at least 3 calls. At least 3 calls last night. Um, from people who shouldn't be calling me.
Right.
So I'm not going to count the people that have built the rapport and have a reason to call me. I'm just going to talk about the people that have not built that rapport and have no reason to be calling me
Mm-hmm.
about Ray. We need some, we need some black leaders to talk out here.
No, even while
No.
I'm out there, I'm conscious of like, don't get me wrong, I'm trying to help steer people away, like, yeah, maybe that's not the best idea or whatever, subtly, but it's not time for me to to try to like give the speech on peace and all of this stuff. I was talking to one of our friends here about that too. Like, man. you know, the friend I'm talking about. I'm like, yeah, maybe it's not time for that, man, because
No, you know, and that's what I say. Like, you should have been asking us to talk when you didn't want to talk.
right,
And coming back to that manhood and maturity of, nah, when it was time to talk, you didn't want to talk. Now it's gun time. Now you want to talk. No, time for talk was then. Time for talk was when the community 6, 7, 8 months ago was saying we
yeah,
want body cameras. That was the time to talk. Time to talk was when George Floyd happened and the community was expecting a local statement, and
exactly,
not just a statement about it, but a statement on here's what we're going to do here to make sure it doesn't happen.
yeah,
Instead, we had local law enforcement leadership, you know, off the record saying things like, which is why I'm not going to drop names, but off the record saying things like, we don't need body cameras because we don't have those kind of problems here. And I remember even when they said it, it's like, so basically you're going to wait for it to happen, then you're going to do something.
and see, you know, just to conceptualize this for people watching, it's like a couple saying, you know, we don't need marriage counseling, right? But then as they're in a relationship, they got an issue, but they just keep walking past it. Every time it even comes up, or they just keep brushing it under the rug.
I
And
think that's a
then when
great
they
example,
finally do
bro.
argue, it blows out of proportion, and everything that was supposed to be said before, now it starts to get said.
I think that's a great example. Me and my wife started going to marriage counseling before we got married.
Right.
And I remember telling people that, and they're like, "Oh, if you're going to marriage counseling now and you're not even married, that's a problem." And I started feeling real shamed or guilty or whatever. But then I started looking at those people's marriages and those people's lives, because half of them wasn't even married. And I was like, why am I listening to you? I
Right.
don't want nothing resembling your life. Your life is a dumpster fire and it's been burning for decades. Why am I even listening to you? And that was really enough to say like, hey, not only am I not going to stop doing it, but I'm not going to be hiding it. And that's the point. Like, when did proactive awareness, when did say I'm going to engage the possibility of a problem before it becomes a problem? When did that become weakness?
Right.
When did that become when? Because to me, it's like, it's almost like we're fighting intelligence.
Everything is reactive. Everything that we do is the re, the prefix re is in front of it. Redo it, rework, reentry, all of this stuff. There's no pre. Nobody wants to deal with the issue on the front end. It's always on the back end.
And then it'd be one thing if it ever worked for these people, but they hate their lives. You've heard my joke. Cats always be like, oh, I don't put my social security in. I don't put my information out there because somebody might steal my identity. What are you talking about? Nobody wants to be you.
Right.
You don't want to be you.
Right.
You wake up every day wishing you were somebody else. Why on earth would someone steal your identity? Could you
Right.
imagine that hacker? Nigerian dude steals that person's life. It's like, oh, I'm even worse off than I was before.
And I see what you're saying too, because it's a lot of comments, and sometimes I can't even try to read them, but you know, you get them, and then you see that they're teachers in the school system, or you know, they work at this location or whatever, and you hold this view. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
And
always he should have did
the
this. He
views
should have
don't
did that.
actually bother me because you see what you see at your level. The fact they don't realize there's levels to this, that's what amazes me. You'll have people where, I think I was talking about earlier, I didn't get too much into it, but actually one of the most difficult conversations I had the last 72 hours was with a black teacher who's been working in the black neighborhood for 21 years. And she thinks because she's been a teacher in a classroom with children, she can see the entire system. The way she tells it, bro, you put her in charge, she'll fix everything.
A practitioner.
I don't know. How is it that you work at a donut shop? You work at Krispy Kreme. You're on the factory line at Krispy Kreme for 20 years.
But you don't know how
Is
much
there,
money being generated every year.
but you think you could run the company? Like, is it something in the chemicals that make the glaze? What does that to you that makes you think because you stamped 1,000,000 donuts, you know how to run a multi-million-dollar company? And you see this all across the board. You see teachers who think because they've been teaching, they don't need teacher administration.
Right.
You see guys who've been putting tires on cars because they put the tires on the cars, they can run the tire shop. Coming back to this leadership vacuum that I'm seeing here, I don't care how long a cat is being, and this is Mayberry, bro. I mean, we're not the smallest town, but this is Andy Griffith's show. I don't care how long you've been doing your Andy Griffith thing out here. The fact that you think you're built for riot life or how to handle it, or what you did 2 days of training 2-3 years ago. And that's what we're seeing here. We're seeing people like, this was amateur hour. This was amateur hour.
Yeah.
And I call it amateur hour because look at all the opportunities to learn. Like, bro, I never played football. I was a wrestler. But I was told by the football players that after the weekend, part of your job as a football player was to sit in a room, a dark room, and watch tape. I was told this. Watch tape for how you performed last week, but equally so, watch tape for who you're going to play this week.
Exactly.
This looks like cats that don't watch tape. That's what this looked like.
Yeah.
This looked like cats who got a book called So You Want to Play Football.
And I use that film analogy in regards to studying your opponent. So when I see the comments and all of that, it's like, to me, it's like I'm watching film now. You know what I mean? To see what's going on. But just to make another point, forgot it might have been a meme or a post or something. When you think about bullying in school or whatever,
Yeah.
you sit back and look at how these adults act and how, or parents online bully, try to cyber bully, try to at least, or some people might be actually getting bullied because everybody not confrontational. If you look at that, you can understand why the hell you got so much bullying in school, because they probably do that shit to their kids all day long too.
You know, the other thing I've been noticing, all the false plays. Coming back to the schoolyard fights, a lot of times you be fighting people based on information that was a lie anyway.
Yeah.
They never even said that. They never even did that. I just been watching all day about, even on the scanner last night, we were out there at a particular time where that Kenosha police scanner was saying certain things were happening, and we're right there. Nothing's happening. You're just instigating. You're just inciting. You're riling people up.
Yeah, that person in the middle will say, "Baddest one, touch my hand."
Yeah,
Baddest
but that's what
Yeah.
this was coming back to. When we talk about defund the police, fire whoever those people are talking last night. Fire them. And if you do, let's back up. Do an investigation of where they got that information from. If the information wasn't vetted, change your systems.
Yeah.
If they got it from someone on payroll, fire those people. Because they were talking about some residential buildings being burned down, it was crazy. Like I'm reading right now, WGTD put this out. Kenosha scanner is reporting an active shooter in Library Park neighborhood. Helicopters in the air.
Yeah.
Guess what? No active shooter.
No. And my wife called me with that. Matter of fact, because today I wanted to take my son with me so he can see what's going on. But of course, my wife gonna be concerned. So she like, I heard it's an active shooter. I'm already en route now. I'm not turning around. So we finna go see if it's an active shooter. We get there, it ain't nothing going on. Matter of fact, it's 6 o'clock now. I'm about to get ready to head down there again, but it was no active shooter.
So it's like you got people trying to keep everything together, but you know,
Right.
you
So yeah, you got like community leaders like Alvin yesterday, like trying to keep the people down. But from what I understand is even though they were being peaceful, now it was a bunch going on. And if it's at night, I just think protesting at night is not good. Like 11, 12 o'clock at night. Like it's time to go home. But anyway, the organizers or the leaders was maced and sprayed with rubber bullets, from what I'm understanding. Now, this I don't quote me on it because it could be misinformation, but I did talk to Alvin directly, and he was pepper sprayed last night, and then today something happened where the door was touched, and then he was sprayed again.
Oh, I know they was doing pepper spray last night and and bullets.
And today something happened too. Now I
Oh,
need
I
to
don't know about
confirm.
today.
But yeah, I just talked to Alvin in person. He was resting up because his eyes was all messed up from the pepper spray today. So he got sprayed twice.
So let's see here. I got a question here. Has the mayor or the police chief made a statement at all at this point? In what way are we being led by them right now? So
So
I
yeah,
heard that they canceled. Did it even happen?
no. So what happened was they said they were about to have it out in Civic Park.
Okay.
Then like 10 minutes before, they said they're gonna have it inside the building. So
Okay.
all the news channels started like trying to creep off because it was like exclusive at this point. But then everybody started following. So that, but they only let the news cameras in and not the people, except for maybe some people that was in there already. Now, Antiranium thing was, which I can kind of understand. Maybe he wouldn't got out everything that needed to be said. Of course, it might be some fear of what happened last night with the officer getting hit and people throwing stuff or whatever. But you can't be scared of the community you live in. You gotta
Yeah.
face the people.
I'll go more directly. You can't be scared in the community you make money off of.
Yeah.
It's like there's a local guy, Mike Lampos. He owns Fex down there. So he's just been going off. He writing, "Where's the National Guard?" And I'm just like following this page right now where they're just going, him and his people. So amazingly, this is Tony Evers' fault. I guess he did the training. Tony Evers is talking about the Kenosha police today. It's no wonder the National Guard never showed up. Now, I was there when some people were talking about making the call. So it's just funny that these cats, they know everything.
Right.
And then he's talking about it here. So, state of emergency declared, leftist aim rifles at cops. Shooting will spark mass. Let's finish it. What does it say? Shooting will spark mass riots again. A guy named Tim Cast, who is not from Kenosha, again. And you just look at the page, just look at the comments. Why doesn't YouTube allow you to criticize black people? Dear America, the elections are coming. Is going to be about law or chaos. Cops can't retreat nor lose a fight. Even like that. Cops can't retreat. Why is everyone telling cops to retreat? The left is all about their feelings, don't care about truth. There it is. Police shoot a black man, but the 5-year-old, remember that? The 5-year-old and dude killed in the head was no race was mentioned. So not only did he have a warrant, he had a gun as well. Did he have a gun?
The guy, no.
Yeah. I didn't think so. But like I said, these are, and this is what I'm saying, these are local business owners. These are the places online they swim in. This is all just white supremacy, white racism. The guy just said right here, okay, we all have to repeat, he was a rapist. He was a rapist. Wisconsin governor, Democratic Tony Evers. Save you looking it up. Nationwide riots. This is why cops need armored vehicles. The escalation will not end well for the woke commie mob.
Right.
That this is just all white supremacist talk. But, how do you get to this stuff? These are local business owners who make good money off of the local people here. And that's what I say. I'm like, I'm not even going to tell you what to think. These are local people who make money off the community. I was talking the other day. Actually, I was talking to this group of people.
Can you see the comments in the watch party?
No.
So Scott Drew's here from Kenosha. You know Scott. Scott
Okay.
Drews. He said, thoughts on what's been commented from Evers' camp. Is he being proactive for our town? I don't think he's supporting our town and the issue very strongly.
Okay, let's talk about that.
I don't think he's supporting our town. Oh, he said that twice.
So he's saying, I don't think that Evers is supporting the town, correct?
Yeah, and is he being proactive in our town, for our town?
So I am a military man. So Evers' responsibility is not to jump on a plane or a car every time an issue happens in a county, in my opinion. There's a chain of command. To me personally, if Evers has to come down here personally, because I don't know what he's asking, so let's just go big and go small. If Evers has to come here personally, that should be followed by relieving everybody of command. Okay?
Kind of like when the feds come step in.
Right.
Everybody, y'all can go have a seat.
If you need me to do your job for you, that's fine. But guess what? You just resigned. Now, should have Evers have made a call saying, do you need anything? Absolutely. But I'm going to tell you this right now. I am pretty confident that phone call happened. I'm extremely confident that phone call happened. I wasn't there, but he's got nothing to lose. There would be no good reason to not do that phone call. So really what we're getting into, whether you're on the right or the left, you're really asking about there's something that you want that you think Evers should have done, but he didn't. So let's talk about the right side. If you're on the right saying Evers should be supporting the city more, you're usually one of these people online right now talking about how Evers should be standing by the cops. So you hear a lot of venom right now about Evers writing his statement that he sent out. Did you see the statement?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of venom on that. So I could see that side if you think he should be sending more guns and cops, but let's talk through that. That sounds like a person uninitiated in war. The people in Afghanistan, they're running around in sandals with guns from the 1970s. We've been fighting them for 20 years. If you could shoot your way out of a situation, America would have been the experts in it. Our track record ain't showing that's really the case. So to me, that just sounds like a whole bunch of cats have been playing Call of Duty, and they might have some thumb time, but they ain't got no trigger time. So you can up, down, left, right, your life, but this is real. So just where it becomes real is them interacting.
Scott hit me up on the side talking about me eating Doritos.
On the left side, I don't know. What do you want Evers to do? Come down here and arrest the cops himself? I guess whichever side we're talking to, I don't know what you want Evers to do. So either you're wanting him to send more guns into this powder keg, you want him to send more dynamite sticks into this powder keg, or you want him to just skip the entire system and go handle it himself.
Yeah,
I don't see the logic in either, personally.
Scott said he appreciates the order and rank comment. It makes sense. And to me, that makes sense too. You know what I mean? The mayor is over the city. So we expect to hear from them first. Them our local leaders.
And that's all I'm saying. And you know what? Me and the mayor, you know, we ain't besties. You know, we haven't double dutched together in a long time. But he's got the position. Give him a chance to work the position.
Yeah.
If it gets to a point where we, the people, feel that him being in a position is untenable, which, even though I've been critiquing the man the last 24 hours, I don't think we're anywhere near that point. We're not past the point where we're not past the point of no return. So, you know, it's kind of like maybe your quarterback's not handling first and second quarter that well, but you know,
right. Yeah. Might come out with a strong arm in the third and fourth.
Right.
Hopefully.
So
Yeah, man.
I see another comment here. It's too big, so I'll just say it. Someone wrote, a Facebook friend posted that Jacob Blake told the officer that he had a gun in the car. The question posed after that was, why did he ignore the police? So
another false news type of thing.
Well, before I go further, whether he had a gun in the car or not, whether he told the police he had a gun in the car or not, there's still the question of why did he ignore the police? But I say there's a higher level question. We, the people, don't pay Jacob Blake. We don't pay Jacob Blake to behave a certain way. We pay the police to behave a certain way. We pay them to handle people like Jacob Blake who don't comply. I'm going to continue forward. I think he is required to disclose that he has a gun. I am a concealed carry holder in Wisconsin. I am not under any Wisconsin law that when I'm engaging police, I am required to disclose that I have a gun. So I'm not a lawyer. I'm not going to say I memorized all the rules, but I don't remember being told I'm required to disclose the police. So maybe I just admitted that I do not disclose the police. And for me, even if that was a law, that's the dumbest law ever. As a black man, I would never do that. I would never say, hey, cops, I know it's 11 o'clock at night, but I got a gun. Absolutely not. Not me.
That report is fake. I've seen it already, whoever that is. People sharing that, it's fake. They talking about he had a knife and all of that stuff. It don't add up. Now we talking about hearing it directly from the people involved. Stuff news you won't hear because you're not coming to
right.
The area to talk to the actual people.
And it's kind of interesting you mentioned that because me and you don't know Jacob Blake directly, but you know, that game of telephone or degrees of separation.
Yeah.
We're getting information. I know me and you are getting information that's genuine information, but we know not to speak that.
Exactly.
So I do find it interesting that there's people who, let's say me and you are 3 or 4 degrees separated. And I'm saying 3 or 4 degrees separated from the family. Okay. There's people that are 14, 15 degrees separated. That's an exaggeration, but we don't get into the statistics. And they are speaking with such surety and they're passing this stuff.
Yeah.
But it is out there. But yeah, I just continue with the question.
They make declarations instead of ask questions. So even people that comment, they start off by saying, you know, I want to respect your perspective, but then as soon as you put that but, you know what I mean? then they say what they really want to say.
Yeah.
You know,
hey, I'm not racist, but
yeah.
hey, you know me. I'm not racist, but you know, so I'm just following the comments here as much as I can. I'm trying to keep up with the different streams because we're on YouTube, we're on Twitch, we're on Facebook, and I know people are sharing it.
I'm finna take off, Ray, man. I'm gonna catch
you
later. I'm about to go downtown.
All right. I'll probably be out there a little bit later. I'm supposed to be helping actually set this up downtown at one of the businesses. So we'll see.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll catch you, man.
All right, cool.
I guess I'm not going to say it's inappropriate to have the conversation about what was Jacob thinking. I don't have that courage. Yes, I am a free American. I can say whatever I want to say, but even with those freedoms, I don't feel comfortable speaking, even as opinion that um, you shouldn't be talking about it. I don't have that courage. I don't have that conviction in my heart. I don't have it. I will say this. Um, Actually, hold up. Someone just took care of me. So before I continue forward, no, nothing in Wisconsin gun law say that you need to disclose to a police officer that you are carrying a concealed weapon. However, if the officer requests documentation, then the law says you must show him your license and photo ID. A licensee shall have with him or her during all times he or she is carrying a concealed weapon his or her license documentation, photographic identification card, and if the licensee is a military resident, his or her military license. So what that means is I don't have to disclose to a police officer that I'm carrying. If they ask for ID, I have to provide them ID. If they happen to see, the other thing I have to do if I'm carrying, I have to have my permit card on me at all times. So I carry my permit card whether I'm carrying or not. Why run the risk? So whether I'm carrying or not, I have my permit card on me always. That way there's no risk in that way for me. But yeah, the state of Wisconsin, yeah, I never heard that before. You do not have to inform an officer. And that comes up because I had a friend come out of Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, you do have to say it. So he came to Wisconsin, and we're not going to get into the whole story, but he came to Wisconsin, and yeah, he told the police that he had his weapon on him, thinking he was obeying the law, and he ended up being taken into the station. Luckily, we were able to work it out, so it wasn't an issue. It was just a mix up with understanding law. But yeah, so yeah, Wisconsin, I know you don't need to. Oh, we were talking about appropriate questions and inappropriate. There's a lot of things in my life that I try to hold myself accountable to not. I try to hold myself accountable to not expecting everyone to move how I move. I think I mentioned earlier about I don't like how certain people, usually white people, use my success in life against other black people. If Ray did it, why can't you guys? It's, to me, that's the equivalent of saying, you know what, some of you guys made it out of the hood playing basketball. Why can't all of you? So I'm very sensitive to that. And when I look at what we are engaging with pathology and mindset of what was he thinking when he did this and what he did that, I don't know. And I don't feel comfortable telling you that you don't have a right to ask that question. For me, again, coming back to that military hierarchy, the moment the police showed up, the police were in charge. When I walk into the room, well, let's do a hypothetical. If I walk into the room and the house is on fire and my two little kids are the ones setting the fire and their mom is sitting there, I'm not going to ask them, what are they doing? I'm not going to ask the children, what are you doing? I'm going to ask their mother, what are you doing? When I'm out in public and I see bad kids being bad in Walmart, I don't get mad at the children. I never get mad at the children. Children do what their parents allow them to. You had 5 policemen on scene. For me, when it comes to order and responsibility and stewardship and authority and a mantle placed upon you, I'm not going to say the question's not on the list, but it is so far down in the list. Most of my questions are to those 5 police officers, starting out with whoever was the senior ranking. He is the one that I'm asking, how did the guy even make it to the car door? How was he even able to be walking? Why were your officers already with their weapons out. Because I'll tell you this, folks, we talked about it earlier. It's very difficult to wrestle people with a weapon in one of your hands. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but you're definitely not playing the game on easy. How was it even possible? There's so many places that I'm like, how? How? And those questions, none of them are directed towards Jacob. And they're not directed towards him because he don't work for me. Kind of like when your kids come home and they're like, oh, that was a really hard test, and that's why I got a C. You're like, okay. And they're like, well, all the other kids got a C. What do you say as a parent? I got nothing to do with those other kids. I didn't ask about those other kids. I don't want to hear about those other kids. I'm talking to you. Jacob Blake don't work for me. Despite what Fox News claims, every black person in America doesn't work for me. Cops work for me. That's the difference. So maybe Jacob Blake works for you. I don't know what you're into. We just had the Huffhine family. We just had that nice, cute little blonde-haired family out in Paddock Lake get shut down for running that vape operation. So maybe you got some connections to that side of that underbelly. Maybe you got those connections. I don't have those connections. Jacob don't work for me. I don't know Jacob. So I would say I'm not unreasonable. I'm not crazy for saying that I would rather work on the people that work for me. I'd rather work on the people that have an obligation or an established relationship to me. I'll start there. Now, yeah, after we get that relationship worked out, yeah, might I be sitting there, see a Jacob Blake walking down the street and be like, hey, bean pie, my brother? Yeah, maybe. But, that's not really at the top of my list right now. So for me, I more than I'm concerned with Jacob's pathology, I'm concerned with the pathology of the people who watched what happened, and they don't have those questions to the police. They have no questions for the police, and they only have questions for Jacob. For me, that is a more concerning pathology that I need to understand. Because those usually, in my little world, those are the same people to where when their kid gets caught doing 17 over the speed limit, they have a ton of questions for the police officer. Even though their kid dead to rights was speeding, they only have questions for the police officer. They tell their kid, we're going to challenge this in court. You can't get these points. But those same people watching this, they don't got no questions for the police. That's a pathology that my interest is more drawn to. I'm seeing a former cop here. He's just confirming what I'm saying about having a weapon out. Sympathetic muscle reactions are notorious as well. Holding a gun in one hand and squeezing with the other, good chance you are going to squeeze the hand that has a gun. Which is why I'm going to speak for Rangers. I was never a police officer. We train to not wrestle. What does that mean? If you got squirrely, we trained pushing you away so everyone else can engage you. So even the person that was trying to search you or whatever, they weren't trying to search you. They weren't trying to wrestle you because it's a bad situation to try to wrestle someone with a weapon between you. That's bad mojo. Push the person away, give everyone else a clean shot for that reason. So the fact that all those officers had weapons out, I don't know the future. I'm seeing people saying now here that, they're talking to people and it seems like this is a pretty open shut case. I don't know. I've seen lots of things that look open shut to me. and they weren't. I don't know. To continue on here, if you have a gun out, that's all you're doing. Absolutely. So much to the point that an infantry school, as an infantry officer, part of the training, you're not given a rifle. You are running these drills. You're, giving commands and you're giving orders. Again, it's all simulated. It's not real bullets or anything, but you don't want to pass. So there's a little bit of stress to it. It's hot. It sucks. Out in Georgia, horrible place. Columbus, Georgia, where dreams go to die. But anyways, so you don't have a weapon. And the reasoning behind that is if you are in charge and you're staring down a barrel of a rifle, guess what you're not doing? You're not leading. If the lead officer is firing down a rifle, things are jacked up. It's over. So go back and look. So if you take my words there, go back and watch the video. Technically, you could say this was done. This was bad. This was jacked up. This was effed up. The moment every officer had a weapon out. That is the moment it went bad. Not when he reached for the car door, not when he opened the car door, not when he got inside. The moment every officer had a weapon out, that's when this was done. Because at that point, everybody is a trigger puller. Nobody is a thinker. Now, you could say, no, cops are trained. No, they're not. No, they're not. I've been out of the game a long time. I'm going to tell you this right now. I still got money on me. They are not trained for that kind of work. Not at that proximity. They're just not. Guns come out, head goes off. You go into zoom mode. As Charmaine just said, he's heading down there now. I was actually trying to set this up downtown at one of the local businesses, Red Zone. We were trying to set this up from there and just have a camp where people could come in, fill in, go from there. So timing, maybe we'll have it set up there tomorrow. But the idea was, we know that tonight's going to be a coin toss. Tonight's going to be a coin toss because you have a lot of out of town people speaking on this who do not care what happens to Kenosha and who do not care what happens to this part of Kenosha. So that was the original idea here. Where it's like, you know what? If we don't talk for ourselves, other people are going to talk for us, and they are going to destroy us. That was actually the original idea behind this. If we don't talk for ourselves, they're going to talk for us, and they're going to destroy us. So that was the idea. Like, we just got to talk all night. We're going to keep going through, trade off, whether it's phones. I was like, man, I got the studio in the house. I'll bring the studio down. We'll get you set up, rocking and ready to go. But it was like, no matter what happens, we're going to keep engaging the public. So all these people spewing these lies about who we are and what we are. Because I already told you, I'm Black Lives Matter. So all the people saying that, we're communists who just hate America and we're lazy and we don't have jobs. I can't control you. I can't stop you from saying it, but you're going to have to say it while I am presenting myself to the world. You are going to have to find a way to reconcile it. You're going to have to tell people that I'm lying, that I don't actually exist. Tell people I'm a bot. You're going to have to tell people that I don't actually live in Kenosha. Or you're going to tell people that my background is a lie. I'm really just a homeless guy who just found a shirt and just threw it on for this call. You're going to have to do that. I'm going to keep telling people that anyone and everyone can come in on this call. So if you're sitting in a room watching this, talking about me, your friends are going to hear me just say what I just said. And I'll be like, hey, bro, he just said if you want to go on the show, you can go on the show right now and talk directly to him. And then you have to make an excuse why you won't come on the show and then keep talking about me and the people you just saw come on. You have that right. But you know what I know, your friends all know, that you are only as good as you are when the light's not on you. The weight of your words, it is not strong enough to be looked at directly or be engaged directly. The business owners who are sitting here calling for people to be shot down and gunned down, this is America. I'm going to make sure people know which one of your businesses are. And I'm going to make sure that people know that if you roll with those businesses, no hard feelings, I'm going to tell everyone I know not to do business with you, not to interact with you. There, and even before this event happened, we had 2 shootings that happened in the same night, I think within the last week, maybe 10 days. They were unrelated to each other, but 2 in the same night. And you're watching business owners talk about all these out of town people. You know, I saw one business owner, he wrote, we need to build a prison. This is what he said. We need to build the largest prison we can right in the middle of that side of town. Build a prison. Show them. I responded to this guy. I agree we need to build a prison, but we need to build it on your side of town. And we need to build it on your side of town because you're one of these bar owners. I didn't say him directly. I said in general, but he quickly got the message. You're what, there's bar owners that make a lot of money off these out of town criminals. Because think about it, if you're out of town criminal, you need 2 things: a source of food and drink and possibly entertainment. And you also need a place to hang your head. Criminals coming from out of town don't buy real estate. Not at this level. They rent. So what you have here is a group of business owners who make good money renting to criminals. They don't ask any questions. They don't do any background checks. They don't care. They just make their money. They don't care what happens to the city. They don't care what happens to the community. They live on the other side of town. Live out in the boonies. We have a nice area called Paddock Lake, Pleasant Prairie. They live out there. They feed their kids with this blood money, with this drug money. And then when these things happen in these other neighborhoods that they siphon wealth out of, they sit there again on social media and start talking about how, hey, look at them. That's horrible. We should build a jail over there. I'll even pay extra taxes to build that jail. You're going to pay extra taxes from the money you stole out of that community. There's a lot of people that live in that community that they're not selling these people alcohol. They're not renting to them. They're too poor for that. It's you who's building this. It's you who's making it comfortable to come here and live the way some of these people live as criminals. So I would say that. I would say for the community, what can we do? Start, instead of us all saying social media is so horrible and there's nothing we can do about it, I say we start following the people who own the houses that they rent to anyone and everyone. They rent to guys who are sex trafficking. They don't care. They know those women are not well off. They don't care. These bar owners who know that drugs are being dealt out of their place, but they're like, hey, out of sight, out of mind. They know. They absolutely know. They don't care. As long as they pay their bar tab, they don't care. I say, yes, let's start going aggressively against crime. Let's make it more uncomfortable for criminals, not from this area, to come here and become criminals. Let's go after people who rent to them, and let's go after businesses who cater to them. I hang out at this beautiful Irish bar downtown. I'll tell you this right now. None of these people running around doing these pot shotting, None of them are coming in there ordering 12-year. None of them are coming in there. They're not. It's not the place for them. There's a certain type of place in Kenosha that these type of people like. And amazingly, the loudest mouths, these are the places making money off these criminals. But then they act like it's got nothing to do with them. And they'll play these little games. They'll say, well, we card in the front. If anyone's got felonies or warrants, we deal with that. Listen to what I said. Whether they got charges pending or not, these bar owners know who the dealers are. They know. Shoot, half the time, they know which one of their servers, which one of their bartenders are dealing. They know. They don't care. They put themselves before the community. As long as they make money, then they are happy. So I think maybe I would leave off with that for the night. As sun's going down pretty soon, a lot of people are going to be praying, hoping, wishing safe wishes to each other. And other people are going to be stoking the fires in the middle of the night. If you're going to pay attention and observe what people do tonight, pay attention to the people in your community stoking that fire. Pay attention to the people who seem very content, riling other people up, talking about people that they don't know, calling people animals. Because as we just talked about, that gets taken, that gets leveraged and incite. If you're one of those people, maybe you didn't know how you were affecting the world. Maybe you didn't know. But now you know. You now know anything you do, whether quiet, even in secret, anything you do affects this world. And why does it affect this world, even if you do it in secret? Because it affects you. Anything you do to yourself affects you, and you influence anyone around you. So you affect this world. Decide which team you're on. The team that doesn't want bad things to happen to Kenosha tonight, and you care about that so much, you're willing to treat other people like humans? Or the team that, no, that's too much to ask. So, yeah, I'll see if we get set up down there, try to move closer to out there tonight, and just try to keep sharing what's happening and monitoring the chatter online, and everybody fight the good fight.